G'day guys, sorry for being late. I just lost track of time. Bloody hell. But it does happen. G'day, Jonathan. Jonathan's here early. Yes. Anyway, sorry about all that. General thoughts on occasionally, including sauerkraut and pickles. Do I need to hand in my carnival card and will Yellow Ted face me with disdain? Yeah, probably. Yellow Ted, is very uncompromising. He'll it's an encounter with Yellow Ted is hard to say what happens. It could be a sort of situation of both pleasure and pain. We'll leave it at that. Because the way the ball man describes his close encounters with Yellow Ted, it just seems that all possibilities are open. Anyway, back to your question. Look, I'm not your mummy to tell you what you can eat and what you can't eat in that regard. I don't think sauerkraut or pickles is going to basically put you in the naughty corner. Still be funny, but no. Look, pickled and sauerkraut, it's a fermented food. You will get the acid loving bacteria, like you do with, the lactobacillus and stuff like that. The same thing you get from, yogurt, the same thing you would get from fermented meat, the same thing, you'd get from fermented fish, those sort of things. They're going to be different strains and variations, but, can have some benefits. Humans have been fermenting foods for a very long time even before humans existed. We were sort of, that's the reason why we've got a low pH, is we're sort of scavenger carnivores, and the only bacteria that sort of survive are those sort of bacteria that are acid loving, like the ones that we mostly have in our system. So yeah, I would say that there are some benefits from occasionally and all that. Probably pickles, maybe less fiber in pickles. There'd be more fiber in sauerkraut, as long as you don't overdo it. The key thing is here, what we're talking about is fiber. Fiber is a contraindicated thing. If you were to consume large amounts of fiber every day, that could be problematic for your enteric system. Your gut, colon. So that's one reason why I wouldn't do it. But obviously, being fermented and stuff like that, it does break down some of that fibrous tissue, so it's not as bad. But it can have effects on absorption and stuff like that. So I wouldn't overdo it in terms of allowing the body to be able to absorb stuff. So a bit, the occasional small amount, yeah, I don't think it's a big problem. But consuming quite a bit of those sort of foods, it potentially could be, in terms of the fiber part. And obviously, you wouldn't give it to a person who's got underlying, SIBO or other issues. You can expect a well-deserved spanking executed by Sir Edward Yellow. Yes, definitely. Oh, well. That makes you sad? Okay. Some people it makes happy. The ball man, it does. Bhatia, yeah, I know. Bhatia. K-Land. Nickname K-Land. Ah, yes, definitely. Yes, yes. Long live the king of Bhatia. What do you think is an optimal amount of water one would consume per day with a sedentary lifestyle? I've gone 2 days without water and felt great. Sometimes I drink about a litre or more. Why? Depending on what you do, what carbohydrates seem to make people, desire more. So that, yeah, it can vary. It can really vary. But I would say that, if you're desiring, depends on what what the weather's like as well. There's a lot of things that can actually affect your hydration status, um, the rate of hydration, generation of metabolic water can vary. So there's a lot of things. If you're younger, it's usually easier to produce. If you're older, it can be less efficient because we've actually sustained more mitochondrial damage over the years and years, in many cases, especially when we've done inappropriate things. So there's a lot of variability here to know exactly what it is. I always say to people, focus on, and then again with your your hydration on a you know on the third day, is that did you have there could be a lot of factors that are causing that regard. So if you go 0, you may, and depending on what you're doing, other things, the amount of heat around you, the amount of food you've ingested. So there's a lot of factors. So if you're sedentary, you're not moving a lot, obviously you're not utilizing as much energy. And if you're not utilizing as much energy, you're going to produce less metabolic water. So it's, that's possibly the reason behind it than anything else. Where if you were a bit more less sedentary, you'd actually encourage the body to produce more water, because it's producing more energy, it's going to be producing more water. So there's probably those factors as well. It's hard to say, it's really hard to say. It's why these variability. I've noticed it myself. Sometimes it can be the second day, sometimes it can be the fourth day. It can vary quite a bit. It may be that we're not producing enough for whatever reason. You're supposed to produce as much weight per day, as much weight in ATP as your whole body. But there's going to be a whole lot of things that can actually affect how much production you can, mitochondrial density, there's a lot of things that are going to affect those variables. So it's hard. Yeah, it's a hard thing. I would say that I can't clearly say that without knowing your age exactly. What is your age? Yeah. A lot of this, let's put it this way, is speculative, what I'm saying. So I wouldn't give high credence to it and say, yeah, it's definitely a great hypothesis, Harry. It's just a speculation on my part, which could be completely and utterly nonsense. But give me a sec. I'm trying to get my live stream to get my chat box up as well. Anyway, yeah, it's interesting, did you actually get a comment concerning graphics? You guys were sort of waiting, discussing amongst yourselves. Oh, is that where you are? Gee, sorry to hear that. Okay. Scotty. I do once a fortnight when I have my main meal with Dad. The other days, no. But I consider it the least issue, in a sense. Yeah, I'll have sort of basic gherkins. I'll have probably 2 or 3 gherkins. It depends. Richard is coming with the money. Richard. 10 Aussie dollars plus 30%. So, thanks, mate. Thanks, Richard. Yes. I'm sort of running a bit over late at the moment. There are many things going on, few of which I approve of. It's an excellent culture to be born into. No need to be sorry. All of our beloved Western countries are going to crap. Yes, unfortunately they are to shit. It's madness. Even in America, people are pulling out, especially religious people are pulling their kids out of school and trying to find other private schools or whatever to put their kids in because of the absolute grotesque nonsense that people are putting out there. It's crazy stuff. Thank you, sir. Software money donation. Yeah, some point I'm waiting for the new models to come out before I upgrade. So I actually went down to check last week, but nah, I've still got a lot of the old models. So I'm still uffing and umming about my upgrade options at the moment. Yeah, we'll see. Yes, we're all having a bonza day. Yes, a great day. Well, with animal husbandry, it's always a good day. It's always a happy New Zealand day in the Kiwi land. You get too many happy days over there. I just lost track of time. I was just sitting back watching something and just lost track of time. And then I looked at, because I've still got my phone. That's how I've even got my phone on my charger at the moment. I forgot it there. I sort of look, oh shit, is at the time. Then I went for a quick pee and then got online. So yeah, absolutely, amateur time. Very much so. We pop that out. Oops. And Paleomelassina includes traditional vegetables like cucumber, brassica, cultured in the less strict protocol, as they don't heavily affect intestinal permeability, or I wouldn't worry about them. Okay. Yeah. I don't really know what they recommend. I just know that they do slightly higher fat and slightly lower protein in their protocol, from what I've heard from other people. But I wasn't aware that they had some sort of keto low carbs / low carb variation either. Okay. Well, they probably have to for certain people. They'll use less egregious plants. That makes sort of sense. There you go. You're off the hook. I'm having perhaps 50 grams or a couple of times a week. Yeah, I don't think it's a major. Now, I don't know how Sir Yellow Ted would take it. He's very strict. So you may still receive 1 or 2 floggings for that. So be prepared to sustain the Ted cat o' nine tail. Oh, is that you guys were 11 and there were 11? Yeah, okay. Ticks. Yes, yes. If you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. We move through full PKD list. The full PKD list is carrots, turnips, cabbage, kale, celery, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, cucumber, mushrooms, lettuce, radish, parsnip, also herbs and black pepper. Okay. It's quite a I suspect they're actually encouraging people to consume a small amount of these things. I hope they are. But then again, if they're catering for a keto low carb element as well, yeah. Definitely the things that I would actually definitely wouldn't do in there would be the carrots. I'd take the carrots out. I'd take the kale out. I'd take the Brussels sprouts out, the broccoli and the cauliflower. And if people are getting strange urine, I'd probably even consider taking the celery out. But yeah. But if that, fermented, yeah, it's probably less of a thing. Mushrooms probably not. It depends on the mushrooms as well. It's a prickly thing, the old mushroom. Some can be worse than others. Lettuce is less of an issue as well, especially if it's kosh lettuce and stuff like that. It's it's low deuterium in terms of water content, lettuce, and and also isn't as bad on the anti-nutrient side. So, but still, but they do have a diverse clientele. Ziggy, how are you, mate? They do have a diverse clientele to deal with. So we need to take that into consideration as well. Yeah, none of them, yeah, they're definitely not traditional. I wouldn't call them traditional. But look, there is very few plants that haven't been to some level either hybridized or modified or whatever. Probably the only things that are the closest to original would be herbs and spices, and even them, there's been a lot of alterations. But they probably, and I agree with Scotty there, yeah. So it's not, yeah, very much so. Yep. Yeah, I agree with you, Scotty. And this is why I've been a bit critical of PKD in the past for other things as well, that make claims about. So yeah, I sympathise with you. There's a lot of these groups. The reality is that very few plants around nowadays are really ancient. If anybody's doing any ancient plants pre-industrial, I know the Greeks do have for one of their fasts. They'll do this horta, they call it, which translates crudely as grass, and it's a specific type that you find in mountainous areas, and they'll boil up, and they'll because it's a fasting mimicking diet sort of thing, and you'll consume some of these horta with no olive oil, no nothing. It'll just be with a bit of lemon juice or something like that, and that's it. It's pretty much it. It's really austere in that, because you are doing a religious fast, and that is a plant that but there is a modified version of it. There's agria horta, which is wild grass, and then there's non. And so there are two variations. And my father still has seeds, and he still produces the wild stuff and all that. And I can tell you, I do not like it when it's hot. I have to wait the next day to be in the fridge to be cooled down, and it's more palatable to me when I've tried them. So, most people have no idea what wild grasses, herbs, and stuff like that. A lot's been modified in our society. Yes, it's very true. Yes, the natural thing is another bullshit thing. Everything's natural. Even we are natural. Everything is part of nature, part of this planet. Unless you're on another planet, we're all natural. Anything on this planet is natural, technically speaking. So, yeah. It's a bit weird. People say, yeah, they'll call anything. It's just the way they do. Oops. I'll just move through. Yeah, it is. It is. Then again, it may not. It may be that because a number of things sometimes the sensitivity may not be due to milk per se, but it may be just a gut microbiome issue or gut permeability issue. So there's a whole lot of reasons why people, because I've got a lot of people that have fixed up their gut permeability, fixed up their gut with taurine and the B vitamins and all that, did that for a number of months, sorted all that, shifted over to getting a broad spectrum lactobacillus type, and did kefir-like protocols for up to 6 months, sometimes even less. I know the Chinese guy, Mr. Baby, he was able to, thought he was lactose intolerant and couldn't actually drink any milk without ending up in the toilet. It fixed him completely after that. So he was younger, he's in his 20s, and so he was able to shift, and now he consumes a lot of milk. So without any side effects or anything like that. So, and then there are some people that are just wired the wrong way or may have too much damage and take them far longer. And it's sometimes just better to keep them off the stuff until things get sorted out. Yes, taurine and vitamin D do play a big role there, but also there are a number of other things. I do have a playlist called Digestive Issues, and I cover a lot of things in that. I know that Jonathan's very aware of that. Yes, the lactoferrin stuff, very good. It turns into interferon. So part of the helping with the immune system. That's why raw milk is much better than, there is a bit of lactoferrin in, it's also a lectin binder. It binds lectins, so it helps in that regard. Probably tolerate plants a bit. This is why PKD, I sort of, they're introducing plants where, okay, let's say you don't introduce something like dairy directly. There's always supplementation of lactoferrin, which could be useful for those people. So, yeah, it's interesting always what people recommend and what they don't. It intrigues me. Yeah, look, there's going to be more on more as part of the series of carnival controversies. I'm going to touch on dairy, on other aspects as well. Here I was just touching on the macronutrient composition, the first one. There will be other things on many other aspects of dairy to touch on. So expect more in that regard. Probably some site. Tom, how are you, mate? Yes, I'm late as usual. That's true. But severely late this time. Completely lost track. DJ Projectus, yes, thank you, mate. Yes. I tell my mummy what I want to eat. She's listening more, thanks to the likes of you and Bart that back it up. Good. I'm glad your mum is sort of jumping on the bandwagon of eating a more species-appropriate diet. Yeah, you're right. Roy, where is Roy? God almighty. I'm really off the show today, aren't I? I am definitely off the show today. All right, we got rid of that other guy, and now we've got Roy. Thanks, Richard, for reminding me. Yeah, I don't know. I've been all over the place. Go, Roy. Yes, I've been completely losing track of time. It's a worry, isn't it? Yes. implications of not following the diet you inherit ancestrally, that is to say pastoral. It depends. You may be missing on, I think one of the biggest issues that I find with dairy, if somebody has those genetics, so that's the video that I did in terms of the blood sugar issue. So, and I did cover the genetics that affect people. So that's a potential thing that one may not be getting sufficient. Because sometimes people come to me and they'll say, I've been doing, 6 months now straight, steak-only diet and all that, and I'm getting heart palpitations. And, the possibility, there's a lot of possibilities that could be causing it, but one of the possibilities is a low serum calcium level. And it could be that you have the same genetics as me. I remember years ago when I did paleo. It's one reason why I abandoned paleo. I didn't know at the time what was causing the problem. I mean, I know now that it's the issue is all about, the serum calcium levels being a bit too low, because I'm one of those 24% of people. And so, yeah, I do need something that other people don't need as much, because they can extract out of meat a lot of their calcium. And that's the thing, meat does help extract, bring in more calcium. We've known this with a number of studies that have shown this. A Stuart Smith guy, he did a number of experiments as well. So there's been a few people out there, and they've actually shown that that can actually affect the uptake of calcium. Also, vitamin D status also can affect there. But if people have those genetics specifically, yeah, it can make a big difference. And so, like a lot of things, in the last 10,000 years, there are little things here and there. The Irish with their retina, and even other people in the British Isles have different varying degrees of conversion issues. So those are all little issues that are going to catch people by surprise and cause issues for them if they don't address them. Gil, how are you, mate? Hey, Harry, why don't you answer the comment I wrote of your CIC video? Oh, I just haven't got around commenting, answering. There's a lot of stuff that I haven't answered yet in that regard. So I'll get to them. I'm behind on a number of comments around the place. I may have missed it as well, because I usually look at the first ones in the morning. If it's another time, I may miss it. I usually do go back. I've been known to go back and answering comments 6 months later, go through my list and say, oh, I missed that one and all that. So I will get around to it. You can always ask it here, and I can answer it for you here, if it's not too long. I did make a video recently how completely and utterly illogical the whole CICO issue is, because at the ATP level, it doesn't comply. And then when we look at other factors, it doesn't comply. So it's pretty much a bust. And even the kilojoule measurement thing, even that doesn't translate properly in terms of ATP quantity being produced by the different energy substrates. So, that's why it's a bust, that it doesn't take into consideration. Even at the ATP level, also there's the hormonal side that, so I think that CICO is pretty much a belief system that some people have that makes no physiological sense in that regard. So if somebody's doing low carb or low fat, like what Walter Kempner would have talked about or did back in the 1930s. I do have a video on about the dietary. There's the dietary guidelines and stuff like that, which I talk about the low fat diet in particular, and that is on Pim's playlist, Pim Johnson with 2 S's, and that pretty much covers all that sort of stuff and explains the low fat proportion. And one thing that we do know is low fat and low carb do have some level of uncoupling of mitochondria, which means that you don't even produce ATP, you're just radiating it away. So, yeah, I do intend of doing a Randall cycle, what I don't know, calling it a Randall cycle for dummies type thing, which just explains the thing in a very easy, plain English, no scientific terms whatsoever, to really, so people can get it in that regard. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the whole notion of calories in, calories out is just, makes no sense in terms of human physiology. It doesn't, at the ATP level, it doesn't calculate. Go and check my ATP, video. I made a Randall cycle in layman's terms video. Yes, I know you did, Jonathan, but this is going to be really very basic, in those terms. So even your mummy will be able to understand it. That's how basic it'll be. Nomad Man, how are you, mate? I take 10 grams of taurine because I had a small stroke at Christmas. Okay, yeah, good idea. It is very protective. Is this too much? And is it all right to stop it while on Metaflor? So you've actually already been. I don't leave the just leave it in Metaflor in the fridge, and I would focus on at least doing 3 months of taurine before even considering the gut microbiome. I'd focus on, I think that's a good amount, and I would focus on dealing with any residual damage in the brain. That's more important, Jenny. Focus on that. And also drop me a line as well. Give me a bit of background of yourself and stuff like that, and other information. Ah, yes. Taurine. I can go on for ages singing. Yes. Must be suffering the same syndrome that bald man from Kiwi land is suffering. Yes. Up Syndrome, how are you, mate? Good to have you here. Hello, Harry. I saw Bart mentioning you in his video with Sarah Paul regarding taurine, where he said he stunk after having too much taurine. Yes, he did. Are you two in disagreement about it? No, we're not. He's still taking it. So we're definitely not in disagreement. He's just one of those people who can't handle sulfur. Simple as that. There is a small percentage of people that have sulfur issues. They're very sensitive to sulfur and very sensitive, and they can't clear sulfur as well. He doesn't do very well with eggs or any sulfur-rich foods. He struggles. And I've told him to, he still does a couple of grams, sometimes does a bit more, I think deliberately to annoy Pim, but that's another issue altogether, but yeah, it is where some people can do, like one of my subscribers in Germany does up to 30, is doing his own little experiment and doesn't have any sort of side effects of that sort. So that is a bell curve, and some people are outliers. And I have talked about this even before Bart mentioned it ages ago, and it was about using choline. Remember, he doesn't consume any organs, and he doesn't consume any things like choline-rich things like eggs, because he can't handle the sulfur levels in the eggs. So he can't lower, he can't actually help his secondary methylation pathway to deal with the sulfur issue. So I've told him about choline. He can supplement, and that's the way to go. So, you know, the option is there. But I think he just, it's up to him. At the end of the day, it's his body. No, we don't have any disagreements. We do recognize the importance of taurine. I don't recommend people supplement like massive amounts. And when it happens, you know, it's for specific conditions. So I'm always talk about people's need. And we're looking at, I mean, I've used high doses of taurine to deal with fibrotic tissue in my own body. And that's why I got discharged by the cardiology in Tasmania for that exact reason, because I was able to utilize things like taurine to break down fibrosis in my tissue, in my heart in particular. So, yeah, and it's useful for many other things. So if he was in complete disagreement, he would have stopped it completely, but he hasn't. So he's just lowered his dosage because he can't handle as much. I've told him to use choline, so he's thinking about it. I'll leave it up to him. It's his body after all, whether he decides to go back to a slightly higher dose and, you know, and take choline. It's up to him. There is the apoptotic effect. There is some other benefits in that regard as a longevity biohack. Yeah, it's up to, you know, one thing it isn't toxic in any way, so there's no issue there, and he knows it. And Japanese consume a number, as much as he consumes in supplements. Japanese sometimes consume every day with a high fish diet, because seafood is quite high, and he knows that, so he can't argue from that sort of position. He's just one of those people which is not a small percentage of the population that has sulfur metabolism issues. It's genetics. So I have been meaning to at some point into looking into sulfur metabolism issues. At the moment, the only thing that I do know is you can use choline to methylate it away through the secondary methylation pathway. Whether there's any other techniques that can be used, it's for a future investigation of mine. I haven't looked into it in that regard. Yes. So no, I mean, the last major difference that we actually had was on the PUFA issue, and he came around to my thinking on that after I presented him the data, and he came to an agreement. Yep, you're right. It's not a non-issue. So that's the reason why he doesn't disagree with me on PUFA anymore. So we're on the same page. And there's a PUFA playlist. If anybody hasn't seen it, go and check it out, and you'll see the information that I'm talking about. Yes, but I still consider him a very important close friend on the interweb. So no, and if we have any, I'll have a discussion. I mean, last time there was something that, on some issue, and we had a bit of a Zoom thing with him and had a bit of a chat and talked about it. So, ran it by him. He was fine with it. So I continued, and recently I had another chat about some other issue, and he was fine. You'll know on Monday. There'll be a video out specifically in relation to that conversation. And he said, sweet, yeah, fine, go with it. He recognizes that I'm in the right. The other person has, let's say, wrongly hypothesized something. You'll find out on Monday, Monday Australian Eastern Standard Time, who the person is and what it's about. So I'll leave it at that. So I do have a good rapport with Bart. So in that regard, I heard I'm very popular on the Discord as well amongst a lot of people. So anyway. Yep. You're forcing the body to produce more metabolic water by movement. Humans generally have been known to move. Even tribal people, they'll move around and all that, and they don't hydrate. They don't drink water. Even Mary Ruddock noticed that with the Hadza when she went out hunting with them. They carried a whole lot of water, and they just thought it was funny that, why are you carrying all this water? Said, if we need water, see these plants, and they just sort of got all the hydration out of it. We just take a bit of that, and you don't get much. That's just to quench the thirst a bit. But pretty much people move and hydrate with fat. So yeah, I think you have to move to produce more energy, and you have to move to produce more water. So I think it's part of. So yeah, even though we say we produce as much ATP in a sedentary state as our body weight, we will produce more if we move. So I think naturalistic movements like tribal people do will generate more metabolic water. And so, yeah, and you did say you were quite sedentary at that time, and you have noticed that by moving, yeah, it's, as I said earlier, it's a hypothesis. I think it's valid. It makes logical sense that you're going to generate more ATP. You're going to generate more hydrate. If you're going to be using more of your own body fat, that additional, fatty acids that you're going to use, you're going to generate more water logically. So I would say you've probably answered your own question with an N of 1. Yeah. And even me thinking about it, that's what I mentioned earlier, and even me thinking about it, yeah, I've done like long walks for hours, and I come back and I don't feel thirsty. And occasionally I can feel thirsty at work where I'm not doing a lot of physical activity. I'm just sitting in front of a computer all day. But it's hard to say because there is the air conditioning as well. So, it's a hard one. So I've always, thought about it in those terms. But what I mean is I'm coming to that conclusion that you need movement to generate more metabolic water. But I'm just trying to find research that actually shows that. At the moment, I haven't found any. Yep, definitely genetic in Bart's case. How much choline is destroyed when egg yolks are cooked beyond being runny? Not an issue. It's not the same as choline. Isn't the same as a vitamin in a sense. So yeah, you're not going to get any issues there with cooking. So don't worry about it. Bought a goat today, Harry, to celebrate the slaughter. Sounds fantastic, Richard. So you've gone from sheep to goats. Okay. Yes, they do have a bit more extra buck in them. So I hope you have fun before the slaughter. Okay, that's people in their comments about different people. Yep, that's more on PKD. Michael, how are you? Harry, if I get a CAC score test done, that tests to get the determinant of unstable calcification. Yeah, it's not really good. What a CAC, I better read. I have no symptoms, but been on a kibble diet most of my life, but limited sugar, so it's going to be there probably. It depends. Fundamentally, it's not, sugar's not going to be, it's going to be less in relation to sugar. It's going to be more in relation to seed oils. So what is your exposure to seed oils? That's going to determine how much, what your CAC score is. I don't really think CAC score will tell you at what risk you are. It will tell you there is calcification in your arteries, yes, but it doesn't actually tell you what risk. Usually, if people have a medium score, I'm more concerned with that than somebody having a very high score. So if somebody has like over 1,000 or whatever, they get really concerned, and I go, well, I wouldn't get concerned too much. That's an indicative of stable angina. That means the fibrotic tissue and the calcification of the atheroma area is quite complete. Then with those, I would give them high doses of menaquinone. I'd put them on a low inflammatory diet as well. Yeah, by the time they come to me, they're already on a low inflammatory diet, and encourage them to use menaquinone for supplements. And depending on their genetics, if they get any palpitations, I usually say, well, take some additional calcium sources while you're doing that, like dairy or any other source. But generally speaking, I would say that if you're in the middle range, or then you may still have some unstable angina in that regard. So I would not at that stage do any menaquinone type protocol. I would allow it just to calcify a bit more. And it will, as you get low inflammation, it will calcify. The calcification will increase, and then it will decrease. And that's what it's supposed to do. No different than if you cut yourself on the skin, it will actually create over that damage on the tissue. It will bring a whole lot of collagen and also calcium and bind all that. And there'll be LP little a as well, some of that cholesterol, which is the cholesterol, that the healing one, and that will come in and do that sort of thing and sort out that sort of problem and stabilize that tissue. And so your calcium will go up and then will come down. So people sometimes see their calcium levels go up and they think it's a risk. No, it's not. It depends on whether you're still inflamed. If your C-reactive protein is low, so your inflammation markers are down, but your calcification is going up, it's because your body's trying to stabilize that tissue. It's no different than when you get a cut; it's trying to heal, and so you get a bit of a sort of a growth above that of calcium, cholesterol, and fibrotic tissue. It stabilizes, and then eventually, when it heals beneath, it drops off. It clears off. Well, something similar happens in your arteries. So I think people have misunderstood the CAC value. The CAC value tells you where you are. But if you're, as I said, so you need to look at two markers: inflammation, and is CAC going up in low inflammation? That means your body's trying to stabilize that tissue. If both are going up, that means you're doing something that you're inflaming your body. If you're on seed oils and sugars and whatever else, and at the same time, the body's trying to stabilize because you're doing multiple damage. It's like, if you get something like that and then you start scratching it, what are you going to do? You're going to cause inflammation, and you're going to cause, well, if you're putting seed oils and you're damaging, it's going to be a problem in that regard. And I mean, seed oils do upregulate matrix metalloproteinases, which cause unstable to these collagen structures that are trying to be built by the body to stabilize that tissue, because what are we doing? We're putting in a whole lot of toxic stuff. So yeah, it depends on the situation and where you are and what you're doing. So, if you've got money to spend, that's fine, to get a baseline to know where you're at. And then in a year's time, check, and you have to check after that 6 months down the track, what's your inflammation levels are. If they're low and then it's gone up, don't worry about it. It's just being stabilized. Eventually it will come down. You go through these cycles. I mean, I had to go through certain cycles myself. I didn't bother at the time doing the test, as long as I checked my inflammation was down, so I knew I was healing without causing any additional problems. And eventually, when they did check me, that's why I got discharged from cardiology. It's because they noticed zero fibrosis in my heart, and also there was good blood perfusion. That means blood was, could get through all the different parts, all the arterial, parts of the heart, and provide the oxygenation and nutrients to the heart cells. And it was pumping, and it had a proper, also regulation in terms of the cardiogram, sort of result. So all these sort of things, all these tests that they did, they were happy that everything was nice and dandy. They said, goodbye, you don't need to be here, go away, which I did. And I said, thank you, and I'm out of here. So, yeah, I'm just sort of concerned that a lot of people are doing CAC scores and are not interpreting the results correctly, and sort of misunderstanding. It's only a snapshot at a point in time. It doesn't actually tell you what's happening inside. There are certain, like a bit more sophisticated scanning devices like MRIs and other things that can actually look into dynamically seeing the heart, and seeing whether the muscle is functioning properly and all these other things, and what the blockage is. And it gives you, just ask your doctor to do a CAC, C-reactive protein. So if you ask the doctor to do a C-reactive protein, which is if that's elevated, you've got inflammation. There's a number of other ones, but why waste the extra money? Especially if I don't know whether it's covered entirely, which ones are covered. So I think the C-reactive protein one, it may be covered, and by insurance companies, and in Australia, I'm not sure about other countries. I don't know. So you'd have to ask your physician to find out that information. Anyway, yes, he's here. He's here. No worries about being late. I slept in well today. Almost missed the bus. Okay, luckily my cat woke me just in time. I never ever sleep in, so I'm confused why it happened. Well, it happens to all of us. I was, just watching something, and I just lost track of time as well. It happens to all of us. Anyway, yes, not very funny. No, it isn't very funny. It was, I was still having sardines at the time when I was doing paleo. And when I dropped the sardines, because I got sick and tired of eating sardines, and that's when it happened. And after that, I realized something wrong here. And so that's when I cheated with dairy, and I tried cheese and stuff like that, and it seemed to correct the issue. And I go, I wonder why. And then that's the moment I abandoned paleo, completely went low carb, and then keto and all that, for the reason that it was too many plants, and I wasn't enjoying it as much. And the other thing is this, issue that came around. Now, I didn't understand exactly why, because I'd actually got sick and tired of the fish, and I never made the connection in my head. And it was later on that I came across some of the genetics after doing 23andMe and doing some of the genetic tests and looking it up at this and going, okay, this is interesting. Now, and then did an experiment and confirmed it and say, okay, this definitely happens when you take away dairy sources, or you take away sardines and stuff like that, or bone broths and stuff like that. This definitely affects me. So it confirmed that I definitely require certain sources of calcium-rich foods. And the Lion diet will not provide that for the people, that 24% of population in the world, particularly amongst some populations even higher that have got a very strong dairy culture or pastoral culture. Anyway, yes. If I have to work in front of a computer all day, what are some of the tips to keep my eyesight? This sort of stuff. And long distance vision healthy long term. Should I wear blue light filtering glasses during the day as well? Like these are 50%. If I'm many hours on a computer, I wear this 50% stuff. So, and I should have, anyway, I don't wear them always, but I should be pretty much wear them on my live streams. I'm just a bit lazy. Sometimes I just forget them. I've had them there. I keep on forgetting them whenever I do live streams earlier. So, but yes, they would help. And also getting out is important. Getting out in the morning, getting out in the middle of the day, getting out in the evening. As the sun comes up, as the sun goes down, and at its highest peak in the midday. It just synchronizes your internal clocks, which is another important thing in terms of circadian rhythms. The other way of mitigating some of the deleterious effects of is taurine, because taurine is very high in eye. So your eyes are an organ that has the highest concentration by weight, even higher than heart. I know many people will know me talking about the heart muscle has a lot of taurine. Well, the eye has even more. And it's the thing that a lot of people that have got using some of my protocols to deal with fibrosis in the body notice an improvement in eyesight. So, yes, there is a video talking about the free form that I do recommend. People can look that up. And I'll leave it at that. So just do a Google, check the word taurine and my name, and you'll find the type of taurine that I usually recommend to people, because it's a free form. If you find free form in another brand, go for it. I've got no problems, as long as it is a free form and it's not bound to any sort of crap, which is the key thing. And that will help with improving eye vision. A lot of us haven't been ancestral for all our lives, and so, but also it's important, as I said, to go out, not look at screens all day, sort of look outside, look at a distance. So because it's very unnatural what we do looking at screens all day, pretty much. So we do pay for it to some extent. Yes, you're an animal. What have you been doing? Have you been peeing on the sides? Misbehaving again. Misbehaving. Yes, yes. Without any focus on other things of life. Indeed. Doodly dude. I love Richard's humour. Bluesman, how are you, mate? Always a pleasure to have you here. LSD meth mouse. Oh, there. He's always got a colourful way of actually introducing himself and addressing other people. Careful, you're an animal. He loves animals. You know, you may put a smile on your face. Zach, how are you, mate? Yes, happy Australia Day. Thank you. Yes. Your legend. Ah, yes. FIFO, fat in, fat out. That's a nice one, actually. Yes. I should say that to a Vagoon. You're on the FIFO dot energy approach. Yeah, just confuse the living daylights out of them. Nice one. You're an animal. I'll have to use that. Reposting my question. Do you know what deuterium content of an egg is? I can't find it. It's not very high. The protein part does have a higher deuterium content. The fat is quite low. So the fatties, a lot of the fatty acids that are in there, they'll push. It's around the fats, which is the things that we use, the animal food energy that we use, will be around the 115 parts per million. If it's caged, grain fed, stuff like that, it could be up to 125. The ones that have got a bit of free, what they call free range, is probably around about 120. So it can vary quite a bit. Even at 125, it's below the 130 mark. It's below that of olive oil and below the upper limit 130. The bottom is about 100. 115 is smack in the middle. That's what you'll get from pastured. Not everybody can afford that. And if you're, the next one up, the so-called free range, it's probably getting grains and some movement to be able to eat some bugs and whatever else. So it's probably going to be around the 120 mark, and the other ones will be about the 125 mark, the grain fed. And we notice that same composition, like even grain fed cattle, and that's the extreme thing that I'm talking about. Grain fed cattle is about 122 parts per million. So same thing for most other animals. The only one that's actually lower is pork, and it just seems to be able to deuterium deplete much better than any other animal. Don't ask me why. I mean, even bacon is 113, which is below even the actual fat parts of the pig. So, yes, it's an interesting animal. But I wouldn't worry. At that level, the protein is going to be higher, but that's fine. Because remember, for structural material, like collagen structures and all that, you need deuterium. So protein is, that's why I'm always focused on the fats of the animal, not the proteins. When you actually combine the protein and all that, it's usually at 140 something ppm. So even a steak is at about 140. Depends on whether it's grass-fed, grass-finished, stuff like that. So it can vary between the 140 mark to the 142, 43 mark. It can vary quite a bit. But the actual, so the protein has more deuterium in it. But we don't oxidize protein unless we've run out of fat on our bodies and ingesting fat. And that's starvation. That's, like emaciated people at that stage. But otherwise, you're using pretty much either carbs or fat, and the carbs are in the 150 plus range, and that's damaging and problematic. And if you add seed oils, which are in the 250 plus range, even more damaging. That's beyond the physiological. Once you get over 160, 180, depending who you talk, and depending which part of the planet you're on, it's really hard to, not get damaged severely by deuterium at those levels if you're consistently at those high levels. So yeah, anyway, hope I answered that. How damaging is a can of diet really? Look, the aspartame is the problem, the biggest problem, and that can actually increase your pretty much your insulin. You get actually a bigger from aspartame. You actually get a bigger insulin response than from raw sugar. I know it sounds weird, but you do. And high insulin isn't a good thing to be spiking continuously. Well, it depends the dose. The dose, affecting your islet cells in your pancreas. It depends on the dose of sugar coming into the body. So a can of Coke isn't going to cause that problem whatsoever. There are other sodas. There are some sodas out there. I've come across one, a cola, which is a traditional cola, and it has erythritol, and we produce a bit of erythritol in our bodies, and you basically it ends up in the toilet. You only absorb about 10%. 90% of it ends up in the toilet, so you get very little effect in terms of, you do get a bit of an effect like from all alcohol sugars when it comes to insulin, but it's very low in comparison to aspartame and a number of others. So I would definitely look at other options if I was you in that regard. But in order to get a lot of problems with your pancreas and stuff like that, you got to have high insulin, high glucose. It's constantly. So the small amount that would actually be caused by a diet soda isn't going to do it. So are all high elevation mountain spring water low in deuterium, or is it just or the higher the elevation, the better? And it varies between. Now there are some areas in the world, like in some parts of Siberia and other parts of the world, where for completely other reasons, hydrological reasons, that as water moves through certain rock sediments and all that, that usually tends to be water that's come from rainwater, light water, and has accumulated and actually has moved through the sediment, which has actually reduced the ppm even lower, even though they're in low elevations, down to around about the 130, 132 mark or less. So it's a bit of a strange one there, that one. But most of the time, the higher the elevation, the better for general glacial water, because of the solar radiation effect. So it changes the fractionation of the water, as they call it. So, you get more lighter water in that. It's not massive. I mean, it's not like even Evian water is in the 140 type ppm. It's not in the 150 like tap water, but you're not getting a massive sort of health benefit by consuming massive amounts. I just use it for my coffee. That's basically it. Yep. Yes, we know. And it's a good one as well. Random question: are extracts, vanilla, lavender, etc., high in deuterium since they are processed? They can be, but it's not going to be like massive, and the amount of quantity most people consume is very tiny. So, so I wouldn't get too wound up. Just noticed Jonathan's put in a link to blue blocking glasses. Okay, yeah. There's a is it the same? That's slightly different. That's a UK brand. Let's find the Australian site. There it is, Blue Block Light Test AU. These ones do have in New Zealand and the UK as well. So that's the one. These are the ones that I'm wearing. They're a bit more pricey, but there has been third-party sort of validation for them. So I thought I'd throw that in for people to look. So there are differences in sort of quality and stuff like that. So that's important in the things. So yeah. So is that a question? Because I noticed, I'm just going back to take a look. That's the Odyssey one. That's my Odyssey one. There is also, Bart's Odyssey one. Jonathan, can you put Bart's in? Because those videos that I did with him are in the on his, not on mine. So if you could put Bart's sort of link, because that actually covers all that sort of stuff much better. Because a lot of people, are completely probably haven't seen those in the past, because I need to fix up my probably not probably need to make a sort of a playlist in that regard, because currently I don't have a specific playlist in that regard. Anyway, so I need to do something in that regard, because a lot of those old videos that I did, I may have to actually, what I may do is I may actually ask Bart how I can actually go around it. I'll have a chat with Bart and see how I can actually, because so having that old playlist, and I don't have it anymore, there's a whole lot of things like on EMFs and a whole lot of other things that I did with him in collaboration. And some of that stuff, I talk about it now and then, but I need to have references. Yeah, I'll sort something out. Yep. And that's the one. The EMF stuff and the 5G and all that. Thank you, appreciate it, Jonathan. That's the stuff we want. Getting back to your question in that regard. Look, I wouldn't worry too much. When you're using extracts and all that, using very little as a quantity, it's not going to be a deal breaker with me compared to what people have done in the past. Yeah, so it's going to be tiny. Don't worry. Let's not get too hypochondriac about. It's the big stuff. That's what do they say? The low hanging fruit. let's say I had a junk food day. Is there something you can take to avoid Randall cycle? Not really. If you eat fat and sugar together, or is exercise the only hope? Well, taurine can actually lower blood sugar by increasing the Krebs cycle by 30% in terms of efficiency. Yeah, so, and also can reduce lactate, going back to the liver and producing more, because when you get excess sugar coming through under a certain circumstance, you'll increase your lactate production. What taurine does is it forces lactate through. It forces pyruvate not to go down the lactate pathway, but into the Krebs cycle via, pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. So, yeah, so I would say if there's anything that can lower blood sugar, in a sense, it's probably that, and it will actually reduce the Randall cycle gradient. It won't eliminate it, but it'll lower the gradient, which means that you can get out of Randall cycle activated stage a bit quicker. That's one thing, but I'd be more concerned about the other stuff, which is things like, you're welcome, yeah, I think that's how you sort of spell your name. And what you can, it's the biggest issues I find with a lot of people is the type of stuff. When you're actually having a lot of alcohol, as in particular, as well, that will really tax the liver. So B vitamins will be lowered. Choline is necessary to export the fat out of the liver. So there's a number of things like that as well that are going to play a role. Then if you're, in close proximity with seed oils, which is another issue in itself, astaxanthin is an option. I use it when I go on holidays because I don't know what I'm consuming, but you don't want to be consuming that every day, every 3 days, because it does bioaccumulate in the skin, and you'll get a nice changing skin color, which I don't think is a good idea. But it has the ability to stabilize PUFA and refresh it. It's what it does for the fish, because they're under a lot of stress as they move through the water, and they can oxidize their polyunsaturated fats, and that red stuff that is around the sort of skin, that middle part. It's more pronounced in salmon and stuff like that, but they do exert a lot of stress on their bodies while they're moving upriver and stuff like that. So they need the extra astaxanthin. It's a potent antioxidant. So yeah, there's a lot of, because not only the Randall cycle when you're consuming junk foods, there's a lot of contraindicated things that are going into your body, high deuterium, a lot of different things. So yeah, can be multiple problems there at the same time. Does eating raw eggs actually matter for biotin levels? No. I can see I'm going to have to, for my Banjad, Jod, I'll have to make that video at some, the only amount that gets, as long as you're having whole egg, if you're only doing whites, then yes, raw whites will cause a biotin deficiency. If you're doing whole eggs, because there's quite a lot of biotin in the yolk, then you will actually just 27% of the biotin will be bound. That's all from avidine. Only 27%. There's a formula for that. They've actually worked it out. So no, you cannot get, because otherwise our ancestors would have got a biotin deficiency by eating raw eggs out in nature. So no, that doesn't happen that way. As long as you're eating the whole egg, that is, not the whites only. So that's what it makes the difference. That's an easy question, but I have to make a video on that. Yes. To cover that point. It will be part of the carnival controversies. So, yep. And do you remember the 5G? Yes, that's been put in by Jonathan himself, is actually placed it in. Yes, that's exactly it. Yep. Okay, consider visualizing your question as putting in contaminants in car batteries and things that can still work, but not very well for long. Yes, that's a techie question. I left you a fairly long comment with some background in December. So if you haven't responded after half a year, I can assume you didn't see it. Yeah, definitely didn't see it. I wouldn't have seen it, if I haven't responded. If I don't respond, people just understand that I do have a day job, and whatever I find there and pick up, I do miss comments and all that. But I do go back in all my videos, my sort of recent videos, like, a couple of months of videos, and I'll go back and I'll turn them into new, the comments, so I can actually see them in the, and then I'll just go through and see whether I missed any. And that's what I usually do. So I do get around. Sometimes I may miss them completely, but I'm only human. You can always ask again. I'd be surprised if I missed it a second time. So yes, it does. It does naturally. Yes, it does. Definitely. And also from the sun, 19 parts per million per hour. So yes. Is psyllium husk similar to non-starch fibrous tubers our ancestors ate? Nope. Nope. Maybe just because they ate it, it doesn't mean it's good. Does it have a place on carnivore? Definitely no on everything. You don't need psyllium husks at all. So I wouldn't bother one iota. And tribal people don't consume a lot of, they're smarter than modern people. We don't have a cecum. So we've got an appendix. So between the small intestine and the large intestine, the colon, there's an appendix. There used to be a cecum there. Fiber would go into there, would be fermented, broken down, and then would be dumped out of the colon. We don't have that anymore. That's a problem. It creates a lot of, because there's a lot of fibrous hooks, and those hooks can actually cause micro tears in the colon. And I would, if I was hypothesizing, I would say, since we went higher on the plant-based, diverticulitis and all these conditions have emerged, where if you go back to the 50s and 60s, in particular the 50s, where there was not much refrigeration around, people ate seasonally what was available. Nothing was flown in. You ate mostly dairy, mostly eggs, dairy, and meats throughout the year, and you had seasonal things, like mostly grains was the other one, and some other seasonal plants here and there. So the amount that we're consuming now is much higher, and that's the problem. And people used to get rid of the fiber in the past. I mean, cucumbers, they used to take the skin. They were skinned. The same thing with the most of the lectins and anti-nutrients are on the skin and the seeds of a tomato. They'd clear it out, get rid of it. So all these things were very different, the way we did it. And we consumed less of plants. It was 2/3 animal foods, 1/3 plants. Now it's the other way around and nearly going to 100%. That's causing a lot of problems. How significant is mold toxicity in regards to human health outcomes? It can be quite bad. My friend Annabelle has been dealing with this, and it has affected her a lot. It does. So especially if people have low detox capabilities, it can affect them quite severely. Yeah, if you're in an environment like that, you need to get out of that sort of environment, or remedy it. If it's your home, get a specialist in to remedy it. You need to fix any dampness in the house pretty much ASAP. It also will raise, a number of, it'll cause a lot of inflammation in the body as well. So, and make it very hard for people to lose weight and a lot of other things. It can actually derange the body in a number of ways. Yeah, very toxic stuff. Need to be out of an environment like that, or the environment needs to be sorted out, ameliorated. Well, there's two ways of actually, you're an animal. If you have a known deuterium problem, most people do, before being carnivore, just focus on getting extra sleep for a few months while being as strict as possible on carnivore. That's true in a sense. It depends. Obviously, most of us have actually consumed high deuterium foods for a very long time, highly inflammatory foods like seed oils and stuff like that. Yeah, but a lot of us have got far more damage, mitochondrial damage. So some people are really far gone, got a lot of damage, like at the cancer stage, and their deuterium depletion plays a role in bringing down the deuterium levels inside because even if you're consuming inside the cytosol, inside the cells, you can still have a certain level of deuterium. If your Krebs cycle is in reverse, you can still drag more of it and do more damage. That's what happens with people that have got cancer, that have got a lot of senescence and stuff like that. And that's why I usually put them on a protocol of deuterium depletion, which lowers the deuterium threshold, but it doesn't eliminate the problem. Then you need to heal because a lot of the other people go lower and lower on deuterium, like Laszlo's sort of team. But my approach with senolytics to get rid of cancer cells and using taurine and melatonin approaches and blue light, stuff like that for better sleep, plus improving the healing of mitochondria. I've got a whole playlist on cancer, so it covers all that sort of stuff. But that's applicable to people that have had a lot of damage as well. They can learn something from it. It is expensive, deuterium depletion, but you could do it for a short term and get some benefit, and then just do strict carnivore for a number of months. A sort of a higher fat approach. Don't worry about body composition at that stage. You're more to trying to, in a cheaper way, trying to dilute both in the fat cells and what you're taking in as energy, dilute the deuterium content of your body, in a sense. Anyway, Zombie, where have you been hiding? Good to have you here. I've just been gone for a while. Is Bart still pushing carnivore while never actually sticking to it? or you know him too well. Or is he finally trying it? Actually, the funny thing, Zombie, he's actually stricter now than he was in the past. Since he did with the steak and butter gang, he did a sort of a thing where he did a priming and then cut, where he lost some weight, and he ended up with a 6-pack and a slight 6-pack, and he really not only leaned out, but he's given up. He doesn't consume a lot of many things now. Alcohol's been very much reduced, and many other things are very, very much reduced. So yes, he's much stricter than he has been in the past. He has crept back into some little naughty things like blueberries and stuff like that, because Pim does it. She's more not as strict as he is as well, but she has those, and if they're in the fridge, she'll eat some. Basically, you'll steal them from her. Simple as that. But that's nothing new with Bart. It's just as bad as that little brat, Ted. Better be careful what I say. I could be in for a punishment from that little thing. yes, he's trying his hardest. So you gave up on social media for a while. It's probably not a bad idea. I took a bit of a break over the Christmas period and all that, and sort of lowered my activities to sort of enjoy some time with family and friends. So yes, but everybody's buggered off. My brother's gone up north, and he said, "Oh, it's 4 days." So he's decided to do it with his partner and the kids. They've gone up and they've just decided to do their own thing. Fine, So otherwise, because normally would have a barbecue, so everybody's gone and decided to do their own thing. And I go, well, I've got something on the weekend to do. And I'm going, bugger it. I'll do an Australia Day live stream. I usually don't. So I decided to do it today. And that's why I'm on. It's good to have you here. Is vitamin D3 supplementation from Nanoline Safe, which is from the wool of sheep? Yeah, it's fine. I say to most people, stick to 5,000 IUs. Stick to 5,000 IUs, pretty much. Up it a bit for a week if you end up with, like, let's say you're in winter and you get exposed, and there's let's say a lot of respiratory infections going around your workplace and stuff. I usually up it to 10,000 IUs and stay there for that period. Generally speaking, with the COVID situation and all that, I did go up to 10,000 in winter because I was working more hours indoors and not getting enough exposure outdoors at all. But generally speaking, in spring and autumn, in the latter part of autumn and the early part of spring, I usually drop down to 5,000 IUs. And then for the rest of the year, nearly half the year, 4 months probably, all up, I pretty much get it from the sun directly. And the body can actually manage it better. But I tend to say to people the safe is about 5,000 IUs. If you're going to go slightly higher, for a couple of months, going to 10,000 IUs is not going to be a problem, but I definitely wouldn't go higher than that. So you're welcome, you're an animal. And Justice is here as well. How are you, mate? And Luann Ruff is here as well. Who else is there? I'm just looking. Anyway, we will continue trying to get through the questions because I'm always falling behind. Filtered coffee versus espresso. What are your thoughts on coffee mixtures? Are those worth the pure coffee? Look, I'm not an expert on coffees. Let's put it that way. At all. There are differences in, like, a coffee that is actually roasted and put into a machine, grinded and then put into a machine. You're going to get less oxalate and you're going to get less of niacin and a few other things. The other way around, when you actually have the granulized, which is freeze dried, which you use for instant type, in that it's going to be a bit different what actually happens there. You're going to get a bit more oxalate and you're going to get more niacin as well, stuff like that. Obviously, it's not indicated for a carnivore at all, but we enjoy it. And some have genetics like myself. I can clear it out of my system within 4 times faster than other people. So I can have it in the evening and still go to sleep and not have a problem. But I prefer either ground coffee or coffee which is sort of an instant type. The filter type coffees and all that, and I'm not sure what else they've got in them, in these sort of other products and all that. I'm always concerned they're putting some sort of preservative and some other thing, anti-caking agent or whatever. So I can't say I'm an expert on all the substances that they put in. I just avoid them. And one thing, I don't know enough about them as well to be able to answer you in a comprehensive way. So yes. Anyway. Yeah, cooking is, you're going to get more. This is the reason why we started cooking, to be able to eat more meat and extract more nutrients. It's the reason why we did that, specifically for that purpose. Yeah. And as I said earlier in my previous stream, what Joey said was, it was in the context of people that have come off of a veganerized diet. They don't have they've got a high pH. They don't have a low stomach acid. I didn't actually clarify everything, because that wasn't the purpose of my interview with him. He was interviewing me, and the primary thing was about deuterium, taurine, some geopolitics and things like that. That was only something that it was a side issue, and I just said, well, it was a hypothesis of mine. I said, maybe these people are getting a bit more taurine, and they're able to that are people that are sick and deranged. Now, a lot of the enzymes will be in very low pH. In 3.5, it's a bit like the level where the chimpanzees are, and those chimpanzees can actually use some of those enzymes to digest. But if you get down to the 1 and 1.5 levels, that's battery acid. You can forget it. There is one actual there is one type of enzyme in meat that actually can turn into pepsin. So you can actually get a bit of a benefit. But it's, again, primarily, so there's a bit that can actually survive the gut, but very little. So it's not going to replace your own body. Your body can transcript as much enzymes that it requires to do the job. That's the other reason why, when you take things like this sort of stuff, lubricase, for people like my father that did multiple jabs and ended up with clotting factors, that actually can break it down, but you've got to have it on an empty stomach so you don't digest it. So Bart's correct on that. But if your stomach acid is not as low and your pH is higher, then I was hypothesizing that potentially that's the reason why people that go on a raw meat can actually digest better, because they're already sick and deranged. So that's the reason that it's helping with that digestion for those people, the taurine side and all that. But as you do it longer and longer, the taurine levels over time will correct this problem, because they regulate the proton pumps in your stomach, but they also suppress H. pylori, which is keeping acid levels low, because it actually, under a veganerized diet eating plants, you get candida, H. pylori, and things like that can overgrow bacteria in the stomach, suppressing acid production. And that's where these people, because they don't have a lot of acid to break things down, they're getting some benefit from the raw meat in terms of being able to digest much better, and also because you're not killing off a lot of those enzymes, and at the same time they're getting a bit more taurine, and that is helping also ameliorate the problem. Well, if they just consumed a bit more taurine, in a sense, supplemented a bit more, they would over time correct that. I've got a video on the digestive issues covering stomach acidity and all that sort of stuff. So, but corrected Joey in the appropriate way. The ion of chloride is the one that actually is the key one to produce stomach acid. And taurine regulates the proton pumps. So it's not complicated. It's well known. You can check it. Anyone can check it in a physiology book. But unfortunately, he's an ignorant little boy that thinks he's smarter than everyone else. But anyway, that's a different thing altogether. So yeah, look, cooked meat is going to extract more nutrition. Even when it comes to the fat-soluble vitamins, you actually get more when you cook. Same thing with eggs. The nutrient factor goes up. So yes, I like a bit of raw, but doesn't mean that, yeah, arguing the position that he was arguing is just ridiculous, when most of humanity and the genus Homo before, from Homo erectus onwards, 1.5 million years approximately, have been consuming cooked meat for very long. So it's ridiculous. With frothing milk for coffee damage, is frothing milk bad for health? Not really. No. You're not putting as high temperature as somebody pasteurizing milk in that regard. So no, I wouldn't really consider that a problem. Marcelo, thank you for your 10 euros. Close friend of is on dialysis, awaiting for transplant. What would you do in this situation? Is there any possibility to correct that? That's a hard one, mate. He's way too far gone in that regard. But I can tell you one from my own father's experience. My father had atrophy of his kidneys. So his kidneys shrunk. And the other thing that he had was also cancer in his kidneys. So double the problem. Now, he didn't get to the stage of dialysis because he went sort of plant-based. He reduced his animal food intake and all that. And he atrophied, his muscles atrophied a lot of things. And in his mid-70s, I said, what the hell's going on, Dad? What are you doing? I looked in his fridge and looked at what he was doing, and I said, why aren't you eating animal foods? And he goes, people have been saying that you don't need as much, and it's not healthy if you want to live long and all that. And I said, the way you're going, you're going to die even younger than your own father or your grandfather, who lived to 107. I said, if it was good enough for him, and it shocked him a bit and got him. And I said, look, you've seen my improvements in my health. So what are you doing? And he changed about a decade ago. And that's when I was sort of already moving in that direction after my 12 years old, when I had my cardiovascular issues, my bypass surgery. And he changed and shifted. And over time, he started consuming more and more meat. And he fixed. His kidneys have grown, and his cancer is reversed. Now, he doesn't do it clean. Unfortunately, I wish he gave up on all plants and changed the number of things that he does. And only recently he's been willing to go a bit higher on the taurine and things like that, and a few other things. So, yeah. And this is the same time that Dad's doing leucine. And leucine is considered really bad for cancer. But the reverse has happened. It's associated. It's not causing it. Deuterium damage to the glycation of the nephrons and all this sort of stuff. And people say, oh, you're losing protein through. It's not high protein that's causing the problem. It's all the seed oils and the high sugars and stuff like that. My father's an example. Now, obviously, this person doesn't have the ability to process and filter proteins and stuff like that, which is unfortunate because he's gone too far down to the dialysis level. But what he can do is use taurine and leucine. And what will happen is with the leucine, it'll actually force protein synthesis. Because even in a fast, and I've actually got a video, check it out, Marcelo. I've got a video that's called Google leucine and Google Harry Sopanos, and you will find the video, and it explains that even in a fasted state, you can still put, because at the moment they have him on a low protein diet and all that sort of stuff, but even in a fasted state, any protein can actually be utilized for protein synthesis and will help with any organ in the body. And on top of that, vitamin D is important to have a good vitamin D status. So if he has problems with absorption and stuff like that, they're liposomal. So if you check on iHerb, you'll find a liposomal type of vitamin D. So that's important to get into the system as well. You just need about, that normal range. About 5,000 IUs. Now, with problematic kidneys, he's definitely going to have vitamin D deficiency as well. The best way would be to inject him with the active form of vitamin D, but trying to get a doctor to do that is like, pulling your fingers out. So that's much easier to do than getting a doctor to basically give. So it's really hard. Once they get into the medical system, it is really bloody hard to do anything at that stage. I know you're concerned about your friend, but I don't know. And you're somewhere in Europe. You're not even in Australia, so I have no idea what the procedures are within the medical system where you are in the country you're in. But I'd say, if I was going to supplement anything, I'd be supplementing taurine and leucine for protein synthesis to be able to help with his condition. And the other thing that I would be doing, and also because it's going to lower the glycation within his kidneys, because they're probably feeding him crap, making it worse. But you can lower the glycation, because that's what it does. It clears out and lowers glycation within the body, including the nephrons in the kidneys. So that will help. Those are the two supplements. But if he's on blood pressure meds, which is the other thing, it's really hard to give them that sort of stuff because it does lower blood pressure. And that's a problem with supplementing taurine. And you'd be, if his blood pressure dropped too low, you can go 2 grams and that's safe. At 2 grams, you can give somebody 2 grams and that will be safe, even if they're on blood pressure meds. Above that, you can't. And to get a therapeutic effect, you have to go above. I don't know how you get around the medicalized system. And, I do have a video covering medications with taurine and interactions. Go and check that out as well and get that information. If it was me, that I was the person, probably I wouldn't get to that stage. But then again, even if I did get to that stage, I'd approach things very differently than what they were suggesting. But he's going to be on blood pressure meds and all sorts of things. And they'll put him on blood pressure meds for the simple reason they want to protect his kidneys from too much blood pressure. So that's why they'll have him, and that's quite clear. So how do you get around that? Yeah, unless you've got a cooperative doctor that's willing to initially, do the 2 grams and then try and is willing to look and is open-minded and do some adjustments, But then again, 2 grams isn't going to cut it, and probably won't do as much. It'll probably help a bit, lowering the glycation, helping a bit, but, it takes months and months to get any therapeutic effect. I'll give you an example. In the rat experiments, when they did damage to the kidneys, damage to the pancreas, damage to it took up to 3 months. That is equivalent well over 9 years for humans, because we live longer than rats, and it's a 37.5 times fold. So whatever works for a rat usually takes 37.5 times. Add that to the amount of months, and that will give you how long it will take. So at this stage, it's really hard to sort that out, Marcelo. But taurine at 2 grams is fine. And I think you can cope with 3 grams of leucine to help with protein synthesis to at least try and maintain some of his muscle mass. So if you do twice a day with leucine, with his 2 main meals, that would help. And with the taurine 2 grams, that would also help lower the glycation and help with some of the healing. But yeah, at this late stage, it's really hard to do a lot of things. You know, you have to be motivated yourself. And I don't know. I mean, you may be concerned about your friend, but a question is, how concerned is he or she, and how motivated are they to make some changes? It's hard to say. You know, that's a really hard one. So, but I think even at 2 grams, they will notice some improvements in terms of filtration rate over a number of months. So, yeah. So that's what I would do, 2 grams. You can get it on iHerb. If somebody can put the link, the iHerb link in the description, I'd appreciate that for the brand that I usually recommend. You can, if you Google taurine Harry Sapanos, you should find the video that actually talks, one, about the interactions between blood pressure meds and stuff like that, and the other video that covers the type of taurine that I usually say to people, it's a good idea to take that. But yeah, this is not medical advice. You have to work with a physician. But if from my own experience, and it does reduce fibrosis in those, and it can improve the situation. Yeah, Dad was only doing about 2 grams. He wasn't willing to do more at the time. And even after, you know, a number, no, it's not, about, what is it now? Nearly 3 years. Dad's been thanks, Scotty. Dad's been nearly doing taurine for 3 years at 2 grams. But it took him a while to get any effect. I tried to get him to do more. Once he got back the sort of result, he was convinced, yeah, I'll do 4. I'll double it. Okay, Dad. So he started doing double to 4. I know why. He didn't want to spend money. That's really what it is. He just didn't want to spend money. He just goes, no, I don't need as much, so he did 4 grams. And recently when he had, because he did the jab, the 4th one, and he ended up having to go onto this stuff as well, which doesn't interact with the medication, the blood thinners. And he realized, I go, Dad, you need to go higher if you're going to heal. And he's gone up to 6 now. Thank the friggin' hell for that. So it took him a while to basically, and still after 3 years, he got some benefit from the 2 grams that he was doing for most of that time. So it's approximately close to 3 years from what I think. So I was already on doing my YouTube channel at the time. I think it's approximately about that time, because that's when I started promoting it. And then I thought about, I'm promoting it to everyone else. Why don't I promote it to Dad? And I said to Dad, do it yourself. So yeah, and he started getting better results as well. And we know that because about 3 odd years ago is when he saw a doctor, and they, sort of realized that he had this cancer issue in his an atrophy. And his doctor at the time, I think he was Russian Australian, but he was a good doctor. He basically said, look, let's not operate, Harry. He said to me, and he said, just tell your dad to consider, let's just play it by ear. And if it improves, fine. If it doesn't, then we'll consider it down the track. You're likely to die with kidney cancer than die from it. Unless it's aggressive, which we don't see it being aggressive, it's probably better not to do anything at this stage, and we'll see how it progresses. Well, in the last 3 years, we've seen a reduction nearly by 50%. So we know that actually his kidneys have got better. So now Dad's been convinced to do higher taurine, and with these recent things, I think I can keep him on 6 grams now for life. He still moans about it because it costs money. Old people, that generation, was born in the 1930s. So, yes. So still got that mentality, penny pinching, that sort of attitude. But anyway. Okay, we covered that. And in previous streams, you mentioned you're not a fan of using single amino acid supplements. I'm not. Forms other than taurine. Well, taurine is not actually a real. Look, it's got a polypeptide attached to it. It's got a bit of a peptide, so a few amino acids attached to it, and so it's it depends on also the form that it is as well. It's really a sulfonic acid, okay? So it's not really an amino acid. So that's a completely different ball game. And I've discussed it. I'm not going to go over the whole. There's a lot of videos that I've done on taurine covering a lot about its nature, how it works and all that. Go and check them out. There's actually a taurine playlist now, so you can actually check that and get a whole lot of information from that. So can you elaborate more on why using glycine powder as sugar replacement is bad? I wouldn't use, well, there's the oxalate side. I just wouldn't use it. I don't understand why people have to have this, requirement for using that. So personally, but just people seem to basically have this requirement. Don't ask me why. Probably from keto cheats and the keto cheat days. That sort of sounds like a good answer. So no beer and pizza. No, he's actually off the beer and pizza. Shocking, isn't it? Can you believe that? Absolutely shocking. He hasn't given up the coffee. He still seems to go a couple of coffee, and then he'll cut it out and he'll go back and forward. He vacillates on coffee quite a bit. I mean, yeah, he's getting better. He's a much, so he's doing much better. Only meat juice. Is fluoride in water really as much an issue as people? Yeah, look, it is. It is a halogen, so look, you need some fluoride in your body. The body requires some, but not too much. Not a good idea for the old thyroid and all that. So yeah, it's not something that we need in large amounts. Red Tento, lucky me, catch another stream at work. Good for you. But I bet he's still pushing the cheap seaweed byproduct plant based on stem cell expensive crap. Yeah, well, he's still selling Sarul. Yes, he's still taking it and selling it. Okay. Got a crash. Not a problem, mate. He's probably already gone. Richard, thank you. When you do listen to this later on, thank you for being here and your support as usual. Anika, how are you? Hi to you as well. Thoughts on standing desks at work? I do have one and I've got one, and I've got one at home. Yes, I do like them. They're useful. So, but you stand, you sit. It's not good to sit all day, even though I'm doing it right now. It's easier to do the live streams when you're sitting because it's the camera. It's because of the laptop and stuff like that. When I'm not, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so it's anyway. I turned down the temperature to the lowest on air conditioning to burn more calories. You don't burn heat, mate. You don't burn heat. Energy. Calories are heat. If you're a bomb calorimeter, if you identify as a bomb calorimeter, yes, you would be burning calories. We oxidize energy substrates like sugar and fat primarily. How much of an impact does it have? Is that kind of cold exposure good for aging? Tips for sedentary lifestyle? It seems to have a hormetic effect. Obviously, the body going between cold and hot does seem to strengthen it. It strengthens the immune system and it strengthens the body, and it makes it a bit more robust. If you're, always, you're not putting your body under some sort of strain, so unless that's a bit, you're getting annoyed, are you, Justice? There is, in all foods, there is some fluoride, even in eggs. I think eggs, is it one? Yeah, there's a bit in everything. It is a trace mineral. In a trace amount, it's fine. In large amounts, it's a problem. So I think you got your knickers in a knot. Anyway, so there would be a benefit, but it's, like anything, if you overdo hormesis, it's not an advantage. So, like anything, too much of anything, like a good thing, can be an issue. Is milk low in deuterium compared to water? Yes, it is. Yes, you could use it for hydration. Yes, you could. Remember, the fat in milk and the sugar that we use is what we oxidize. Now, the sugar is not a lot, and it is lower deuterium than, plant sugar, because in the animal is deuterium depleting. So the sugar content of the actual sugar, like lactose, is going to be lower in deuterium, because the animal, like all animals, deplete deuterium. But it's going to be higher than than fat. Fat is always the lowest source of deuterium, but it's going to be lower than grains or anything like that. So it's, for the small amount, it's less of a problem. Unless you're a baby and you're consuming massive amounts, and that amount can be useful for purposes of collagen structures. Anyway, why is trans fat bad for humans? Is trans fat bad? Found in butter also bad? No, that's conjugated linoleic acid, CLA, and that's not a problem at all. But what we're talking about is the hydrogenation of seed oils actually changes the structure. It's sort of where the double bond is, it sort of reverses it in direction. And as a consequence, when it incorporates into the cell membranes, it changes the structure and the signaling between parts. It can cause interference and stuff like that. So it's problematic. I'm off to watch your milk for the babies video. Cheers, Harry. I might be back. Yep, not a problem. See you, Jonathan. So, yeah, that is probably it. Yeah, so I wouldn't worry. Natural stuff has never been shown. Otherwise, we would have a lot of problems out there within tribal communities. No, we're talking about these sort of derangements. They got rid of trans fats, and the toxic seed oils are less stable. They're actually more problematic. So in terms of inflammation, the current seed oils, where they removed all the trans fat, are more prone to oxidation, primary and secondary, higher in aldehydes than the actual old trans fat ones that had higher trans fats. So trans fats, it was basically by hydrogenating, it was basically stabilizing the PUFA slightly. But when it gets incorporated into your cells, it actually creates other problems of signaling and stuff like that. So it's other problems that it actually produces in that regard. So anyway, it's probably for a video to do at some stage to cover that. Just me, how hi all, how are you? After a gastritis episode, I still can't eat meat and eggs. Anything else, everything else is fine. Anything that I can do to heal faster. Yeah, look, when it comes to gastritis and all that, taurine does help. I do have a digestive issues playlist. Go and check that and get some information out of that. Tallow versus lard versus butter. Which one is has more trans fat? Trans fat's irrelevant from animal foods. It's not the same. But yeah, so all those are fine as far as. What is your view on condensed milk? Is fresh milk is not available during travel? Can I use it? The biggest problem with condensed milk is the sugar parts that they put in. That's the problem. It's the sugary shit. So yeah, it tends to be lower fat. So it's problematic in that regard. So I mean, there are other options. There is like milk powder that can be used, which is slightly better than this sort of stuff. But you have to be very careful with milk powder for anti-caking sort of stuff that they put in there. What is a normal resting heart rate? Well, the normal resting heart rate, Anika, is what is usually considered between 60, 70 to 100 is what they consider a normal resting heart rate. Obviously, the fitter you are can go lower. You know, somebody who's an athlete can have as low as 40. Now, that could be a problem because that also could be indicating some level of left ventricular remodeling. So, especially if somebody hasn't been on a species appropriate diet to maintain the integrity of the left ventricular. Taurine prevents left ventricular hypertrophy or changes in the modeling of the heart. And so, yeah, but I would say I sometimes run about, but I'm a bit fitter. I walk a lot. I sort of exercise. I lift weights. I'm way fitter. And I do high intensity sometimes up the stairs. Like I'll run up the stairs, from the second floor to the 9th floor, go down to the basement and go up to the 9th floor and back again in the building that I work. So I do that sort of stuff, and that high intensity is good for the heart. And when I was doing a lot of exercise, I was getting my heart rate down to the 50 range and below. So that's considered fine by the medical community. But if it's down there chronically very low or chronically elevated, then it can be a problem. It can indicate that there's a problem. So mine generally nowadays, because I don't do as much cardio anymore and stuff like that, it generally is around the 50 to 60 range. So I think that's fine. But even if it's, some people that are in the carnivore space are up to 70 odd and all that. And sometimes mine goes up to 70. I have a little counter that I actually measure it. Yeah. You got to be really rested when you do it. That means calm, take a deep breath, calm yourself completely, then test it. So, yeah. Yeah, excessive amounts could cause that. But in a low carbohydrate state, you know, you're not going to have a problem because you're already using fat. So remember the George Cahill studies back in the 70s, I believe, when he put people on a ketogenic diet, high fat, and then fasted them for a certain period of time. They had high ketones and low blood sugar, and then he infused into them insulin to lower their glucose levels and forced them into very low levels of 2 millimoles, severely hypoglycemic. Nothing happened. They didn't pass out or anything. So it depends what state you are. If you're on a high carb diet and you can't access fat and you're not consuming energy as fat, and then you take a lot of these sort of powders, potentially, yes, you could create hypoglycemia. Less likely on a ketogenic diet or a low carb diet for that to happen. So I wouldn't get too wound up. But as I said earlier, you don't really need these powders and stuff like that. It's a waste of money. So yeah, taurine also lowers blood sugar as well. The difference is it lowers it to physiological ranges. It doesn't lower it below physiological ranges. Again, it's a master regulator. So it's a much better way to go, and you get other benefits. Anyway, what happens in the brain if you do 2 tasks at once, like listening to music, on podcasts while I work on a computer, like I'm doing right now? I'm not a brain specialist, so I can't really tell you. It seems to basically, some people claim that it helps and stuff like that, but a lot of claims are out there, and it does seem to. We still don't understand a lot about the brain. We still see a lot of areas light up in the brain, but what does that mean? Still the big question marks on it. That we can do it means that our brain has the ability, like a Swiss Army knife, to do a number of tasks simultaneously if required. There's a limit to most things. Overstimulation, too much stimulation coming in, can actually cause a lot of stress to the brain. And depending on, some people can cope better with that than others. So there's probably a bell curve for that as well. Hey Harry, I have been taking MSM after you mentioned a video. Worked a treat for my cystic acne. I'm 62. How much should hubby take as a general anti-inflammatory aid? He's 5'11". I'm a heavy build. Thanks. Look, I mean, just the amount you are taking is probably going to be fine. So is he doing other things? Like, I would also, if he's trying to get some general anti-inflammatory effects, taurine would be sort of a combo. MSM taurine would be a sort of a better way to go for him. I find with men in particular. Yep. So give that a try, because he may not. I mean, if he doesn't have this sort of skin conditions and stuff like that. And again, it's the keratin side of things, which MSM really helps with, both in your hair, your nails, and some of these issues on the skin. Has benefits in that regard. But if it's just sort of generalized inflammation, I'd sort of shift further towards taurine than to MSM for those general inflammation sort of related things. So yep, just make sure, the only downside with that, if he's on blood pressure meds or anything like that. So I don't really know. My videos that I've done covered those sort of things. So do look at those, and he may need to get adjustments to his meds if he's on meds. That is, MSM could be an option, but taurine also probably would help a bit more. No, I do not have a video on MSM. I just talk about it, and I usually advise people dosages and stuff like that based on some of their complications. There's a lot of videos that I haven't made because I have a day job, banjoed. I wish I had the time. I don't. Even though other people keep on nagging me about a whole lot of things, but I don't have the time for a lot of things. I wish I could produce more. Sometimes I get into a bit of a run, especially when I've got some free time and I'm not being annoyed by other people, and I'm able to produce more content. So it depends. It's not an easy thing to do when you've got a day job. Coumarin's in lemon problematic. If I'm using lemon juice of 1 lemon every day, does that damage accumulate over time when coumarin's problematic? No, I wouldn't really worry too much. I think you're being, I've noticed from a lot of your questions, you're being a bit of hypochondriac about everything. Our body's quite robust, can tolerate a lot of things, and a small amount is going to be a problem, a bit of lemon juice and all that. So I use it for my fish and pork. I do love lemon juice in both of those things. So it's not going to be a big issue. You know, obviously, if you were to take much larger amounts, potentially, as they say, the poison is in the dose. Saladino says we shouldn't eat bacon or poultry because of the PUFA. He's an idiot. Is it okay to take 400 grams of sugar a day through? Yeah, exactly. I worry for his clients who are following his advice. Yes, very problematic. So very, very much in that regard. But I would say, something like that is going to be very high in deuterium, which is going to be very damaging to the mitochondria. In particular, the sort of stuff, the highest deuterium sources are things like honey and things like fruit. That's why I consider fruit one of the worst carbohydrates you can eat. But unfortunately, salad boy, as we call him, has no idea about this sort of stuff. And the PUFA stuff, I've got an entire playlist for those who don't know about it, that I cover everything in regards to PUFA. So, which I give those anti-pork people a good spanking. Yep. Look, everybody notices an improvement. My hair becomes very thick. I've been off MSM recently because my hair grows too fast, and I sort of gravitate back and forward onto it. But yes, it does improve hair, skin, and everything else, and all that. I probably need to get some, because I am out in the sun continuously now, so I probably should consider it. Even though I recommend it to other people, I don't necessarily always do it myself. Yes. Anyway, maybe I am a tight ass like my father. So statins and lots of stuff in cardiology are BS, yeah, pretty much. But is there red pill concerning anticoagulants for AFib? Taurine really helps with afibrillation. So it improves the heart functioning, the muscle functioning. Actually, I did have a video ages ago somewhere on that I think I did. I withdrew it because I didn't put a medical statement. I just remembered that. I need to redo it. You're right, because I have some new information. So I'll redo that. I forgot all about it. It's been a while. So yeah, statins, God almighty. Look, they do have a benefit in sort of stabilizing tissue by causing, the atheroma that you get when you get inflamed arteries. Well, what they can do is they can calcify rapidly the atheromas. So in a sense, if you're taking coenzyme Q10 for 6 months and you do statins for 6 months, you can stabilize an atheroma very fast because it calcifies it. That's one of its benefits in that regard. Slightly anti-inflammatory effect, but if you're on a low inflammatory diet, it's irrelevant. And it does have a lot of downsides, so in terms of cholesterol, coenzyme Q10, and many other things. So it does cause problems. And we know from the LA veteran study, it sort of showed that it is mitochondrial, poison. And we saw an increase in, cancer. So it is strongly associated. So it's not something that I would put in my body at all. I did for about a year, and then I learned, but that was 12 years ago, coming out of bypass surgery. A fun experience, I can tell you. You're welcome, mate. Yep, I think I mentioned it earlier. C-reactive protein test is alpha ketoglutarate, a supplement for safe as a supplement for longevity. Look, people promote that sort of stuff, and I mean, it's a sort of a ketone type to a glutaric acid. People claim all sorts of things and stuff like that it has all sorts of benefits. It probably has some benefits in that regard, but a species appropriate diet will have much more better benefits. I think people sort of see it as an important intermediate step supporting the Krebs cycle. But at the same time, trying to affect part of the Krebs cycle, I don't see it as a biohack, even though I've always said to people, please show me one study that actually shows that it has this benefit. The only molecule that I know that actually can increase and improve the efficiency of the Krebs cycle is taurine by 30%. But most other things, and NAC, yeah, look, it has benefits, but cysteine can also will convert to taurine, and taurine has just as better benefits than if I was going to spend money on taurine or NAC. I'd spend money on taurine rather than NAC personally. You're going to get more bang for your bucks, and they both affect some similar pathways, and taurine affects a whole lot of other things far more. So it's got far more benefits. CC, how much a day do you take? Oh, that's for somebody else. Okay. You're asking someone else. Fair enough. Eat meat, bone broth, organs, fresh water and salt. Okay. So another comment. Where you're adding spice in your early carnivore days? Yeah, I was actually. I was quite a few spices. Rosemary, oregano, parsley. I'm, pepper and all that. I'm down to pretty much salt at the moment, a bit of salt. So it's saving me a lot of money, I can tell you. Because So that's what I'm down to. And I get that flaky stuff, which is really nice. It's got a lot of trace minerals in it, the one from Western Australia that I've talked about. So anyway, small dosing. Zach, good to have you here, mate. Could you please link where I can get 50% glasses, 50% off from? I need to some for work on that site that I put it's in the There's one there that, where did I put it? Yeah, if you go in the stream, oh yeah, there it is. It's called Block, BLOCK, Blue, BLUE, and Light, LIGHT.com.au. They do have a UK site and a New Zealand site as well. So if you're in Europe, use the UK site. If you're in New Zealand, use the New Zealand site. If you're in Australia, use the Australian site. I'm not sure about North America, to be honest, so I don't know enough. You can email them and ask them whether they may have a site that they've, or they may. I think they, I think somebody said that they were able to buy them. They were sent over, but I'm not sure which country that person. I think that country was in Europe. The person was in Europe, but not. Yeah, look, I'm not sure. You'd have to contact them to find out. Yeah, so that's the company that I bought these glasses, and they are high quality. They are slightly pricier, but they are high quality, and because there's a lot of stuff out there which is cheap, but isn't as good quality. So it still allows certain parts of the spectrum in. They're not, they call them blue blocking, but these ones at least have got third-party certification. They're well recognized in the industry as good quality stuff. Yep, I think I've covered that. Some carnies saying chicken equals bad because of antibiotics. Is it? I love my chicken legs. Now, keep on eating your chicken legs. Look, antibiotics is not the same as, once the animals, that sort of stuff's in there, it has an effect on its gut microbiome. You don't really get much residual stuff that's left in the like us, when we take antibiotics, you don't really get a residual antibiotic in your body. It eventually gets cleared out, no different than the animals. So yeah, it's another one of those myths, urban myths, in that regard. So as I say to people, show me the content. I can't see any research of anything. Obviously, if the animal was freshly slaughtered just before it had, and it usually doesn't happen when they do give antibiotics, they allow the animal to heal, and then they will actually slaughter it at a later stage. So it doesn't happen at that time. So I don't think it's a big problem. Yes, it'll probably disturb the gut microbiome of that animal, but you're not consuming the gut microbiome of the chicken. You're consuming the chicken. So, leave that worry to the chicken. Luann, good to have you here. Okay, yep. Check that person out. I know that gazing long distances is good. I do that myself, even at work. So, and I get out at lunchtime, and I walk around, so I don't stay indoors continuously. Some time ago, you mentioned that there are cases in which you wouldn't take antioxidants. Can you give an example for vitamin E from Jarrow? I did that for about 7 odd years, and the reason for that is because I've still, it's a low dose, it's a complex, and it was to deal with toxic PUFA that was in my body. Pretty much that was it. And especially if you're like losing weight and you're putting a lot of this sort of stuff into your bloodstream. You want to deal with it with an antioxidant like a vitamin E complex. So that was the reason behind it, why I said it at the time. Obviously, you want to avoid as much as possible putting yourself into the sort of situation where you consume those sort of foods. Nowadays, especially, we should not tolerate any of that sort of stuff. Okay. You're welcome, mate. Since 2015, been having Aldi chili tuna for lunch. Fair enough. As long as it doesn't have any oils, that's when the problem is. As long as it's just in water. At around 95 grams, contains veg oil, halfway down list. Not a good thing. Lots of impact. Yes. Got 300 cans. Can I rinse them in colloidal to eliminate the oils? I don't know. I really don't know, Michael. Yeah, I can't help you there. I'm not an expert in how to deal with that sort of stuff. That's outside my sort of area where I've actually stuff that I've actually gone into and investigated stuff for things that have to do with human physiology and stuff like that. But actual knowledge of how to deal with stuff like that, with the canning process and stuff like that, yeah, it's not my area. Yes, but he has a 300. Yes, he knows that now, but yeah. What sort of oil? If it's olive oil, it's still going to be problematic, but probably not as bad as the other oils. But still, yeah, it's a problem. It does oxidize. It does, yeah, it will be higher in aldehydes, higher in primary, secondary oxidative products. Yeah. You're going to have to basically just accept that it was a bad decision. So, yeah. Maybe there's somebody else that's come up with some sort of solution that you can sort of wash them in some way. I don't know. I really don't know how to deal with because that oil is going to be absorbed to some extent within that meat of the fish. How much? Got no idea. You'd have to do an experiment. Yeah, but I know that it is a problem. I know Bart's, especially Pim Johnson, Bart's partner. She's done when she was doing some research. She's been on and off now and then, working for a New Zealand company in recent years, but I don't know whether she's doing any work with them anymore. And she was doing a lot of these sort of testing on aldehydes, on primary, secondary oxidative products. And the biggest problem is it's really hard to, if it's in the food supply, you sort of, it's like a baked product. You can't take out the eggs after you've put them in, if you know what I mean. So it's, yeah, it's definitely not something that I know about. I could advise you at all. Yeah, I'm completely in the dark of how best to go around it. If you stick to just meat, organs, bones, animal products, or whatever, salt water, and you don't have to worry about all this other stuff. Yes, I wouldn't do too many organs in that regard. Yes, that's, yep. You're welcome. Usually you recommend splitting up high dose of taurine. Why is that so? Oh, just, I mean, that's just a preference of mine. It's not necessarily. I mean, in some cases, I've done like 10 in the evening, 10 grams in one hit. So there's no real reason behind it. That it's like not like a religious dogma that you must, under all circumstances, do this. Anyway, so I would say whatever works for you. And the other thing about magnesium, I wouldn't bother unless you've got a deficiency, a known deficiency. Otherwise, you get more than enough. We excrete about 120 milligrams, and if you're eating enough animal foods, you'll get more than 120. It's like potassium again. We excrete about 192, and people get more than enough. It's only when you're very low on animal protein and you don't have a big meal to push up your insulin once a day, as Bart would say, and you don't have enough taurine because you're not eating enough protein, you're not going to be able to regulate the ions in your kidneys, and you're not going to sort of hold on to those ions either. So that's the problem with the keto flu, being chronically on keto or in a keto state. No population is. Most tribal populations consume quite a bit of animal food, and after they've hunted and come back in the mid-afternoon, they consume quite a bit, and that knocks them out of even low-grade ketosis, which is what should happen. I would say, yeah, I sometimes split mine. If I'm doing currently 6 grams, and if I do, let's say I'm going to lift some weights, I will do 2 grams before my weightlifting. So if I do it once a week, I lift weights, that's all. I don't do it, and I don't do it for very long, half an hour. I'm very lazy in that regard. And I'll do 90 minutes prior to allow saturation, and that improves my recovery as well. So, and then I'll take 4 in the evening under those circumstances. That's to improve my sleep. So, anyway, just as Gil Culver asked you why you're not replying early, because I reply whenever I want to. Was a claim in replying under very ATP video sent to him? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen it. And why is it your problem? That protein beyond the end of connective tissue and muscle ends up as fat if it is excessive to your body's protein demand. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Depends what amount. People like the Samburu, the Bushman of the Kalahari can do up to 4 grams, mate, per kilo body weight, and they don't seem to have a problem with blood glucose. So anyway, that. All comments. Could mold contribute to oxalate toxicity? Yes, it does. It definitely does. So yeah, that's another problem. It increases oxalate in the body. So yeah, a bit of a problem. So seeing that you're still on that. Thanks for commenting on the deuterium issue, Harry. You're welcome. If I take vitamin D3, should I supplement K2, or can I just do... look, if you're only taking 5,000 IUs, it's not a problem. It's not going to cause... We're talking about people taking 20,000 or more continuously for months upon months upon months, and they don't get enough retinol, they don't get enough K2 in their diet, they're on a SAD diet. Those people, yes, can cause themselves problems of, increase, uptake of calcium. They don't have, because you need retinol and vitamin D for the transcription of certain proteins, and then you need vitamin K2 to activate them. So the osteocalcins, as they're called. And so it's really important under those. But if you're having like eggs, some dairy products and stuff like that, they all have vitamin K2 and a number of the menaquinones. So it's usually people on sad diets taking vitamin D tablets and all that. They're the ones that usually get into problems, not us. So yes. In a live stream, you're asking for proof to be provided. First of all, I didn't even say that it's a trace mineral. You're getting your knickers in a knot for some reason. Ah, yes, that was earlier. My heart rate is 80. My hubby is telling me almost every day that it is high. At 80, well, if to get a proper baseline, you have to calm yourself down, not talk, not move at all, and then take it. That's how you get the proper measurement. It's like blood pressure. You have to have your arms parallel to your heart, and you have to be in a relaxed state. That's how you, and without talking, that's how you do your blood pressure. And that's how you get the right measurement. People, this is in the physiology books. Actually, it's actually in the guide telling physicians exactly how to do these things. And they're not following them. I even have my physician talking to me and I go, don't you realize that's going to cause? And he goes, oh, yeah. And I go, well, why are you talking to me then? I can do that because he's I used to play cards with him. So I can get away with telling him off. So, Andrew, why are you talking to me? Oh, I forgot. Well, I'm not really, you're going to get a wrong measurement. Oh, well, yeah, doctors. So, yeah, you will not get a precise measurement until you're completely relaxed. Your legs are on the floor, relaxed, your whole body's relaxed. Yeah. So, anyway, I ignore the MSM completely. Whatever. Does Harry have a video on MSM? Nope, he doesn't. At some future time. MSM just spreads propaganda. Oh, good for them. I think he's on a different bandwagon, Nathan. Anyway, is glucose derived from tallow or whatever through gluconeogenesis lower in deuterium? If it's from an animal source, so if it's, let's say if you're producing sugar from protein, it can be at 100, the sugar will have a deuterium level of around 140 something, depending on the animal. We're talking about averages here, 140 something. That's just everything's gone lighter. So, yeah, so that's sort of the range. And if it's from like tallow or lard or butter or stuff like that, it'll be much lower. It'll be in the 130 range or whatever. It'll be because the animal deuterium depletes like we do, and you will lower the threshold of that. So sugar from an animal source is going to be lower, but sugar from protein, because protein is different. You need, and the body does not use protein unless it has to for the production of sugar. So if you have excess and you don't move, so I usually say about 2 grams is fine. Once you go 3 grams, that's for somebody that's doing quite a bit of movement, exercise, and 4 grams is quite active, like lifting a lot of, doing a lot of things like that. So you need more protein as you increase the amount of exertion and physical activity. But even then, what usually happens is generally if you've got body fat and you're getting enough fat in the diet, the body will still prioritize that and just slow down peristalsis. It'll actually slow down the uptake. And sometimes it's well known that if you have a lot of protein in a meal, you could actually end up digesting not in 4 or 5 hours, but out to 8 hours. This is well known. And taurine is the thing inside the gut lining that actually is controlling and regulating peristalsis. So the movement, gut motility, so to speak, the movement within the gut. So it is, you know, I've done experiments where I've basically hammered, where it's literally coming at my throat. I'm trying to push down the meat. And then I've looked at my blood glucose and I don't see any like massive spikes. As long as it's just steak only, fat and the muscle meat itself. If you put other things in, then you confound it immediately. It could be other factors, you know, so yeah. But I wouldn't be worried about tallow. It's going to be low. It's low deuterium in comparison. Okay. I've hardly ever eaten fruit for 30 years or so. Feels even better since ditching the veggies a few years back. Yes, very much so. Not the same as glyphosate. Yeah, glyphosate's a problem. It is a problem in the diet. So glyphosate can still be, it breaks down as it's a breakdown product. So it's, you know, breaks down to glycine. So it's not a big issue that people make it out to be. Some people over sort of exaggerate. Since it breaks down, how can it actually replace? Yeah, it's nonsense. I've actually discussed it privately with Bart and he agrees with me. It's over. It's the main issue with glyphosate is the gut microbiome affecting it because it actually acts as an antibiotic. And it's even recent literature is starting to pick up on this fact. I mean, how long does it take for them to realize it's been a well-known patent by Monsanto's for an antibiotic effect? It's like having antibiotics every day. But that's if you're eating a lot of plants and all that, that's when you're going to get the worst effect anyway. Neff, how are you, mate, Neff? It's been a while. Where have you been hiding? It's good to have you here. Rinse once and see how it tastes. Oh, God. No, I'd probably personally myself, if it was mine, I'd throw it all out myself personally. But that's me. I've suffered cardiovascular disease from all that toxic stuff, and I've got zero tolerance for it. I can tell you, Nathan, I even get upset in restaurants, you know, so I make sure that I've actually sent back meat that I said, look, I'm not going to pay for this. This has been, I've told you not to use any oils. So yeah. So I pretty much spat the dummy once in one restaurant. So I'm very low tolerant of any of that sort of stuff. Anyway, everybody's got their little opinion on everything and that. Yep. Yep, not a problem. Not a problem. I'm back. Okay. That was quick. I left some suggestions for carnival controversies. Oh, thank you, mate. I will cover similar. That's fine. That's fine. In shorter videos over time. I enjoyed the milk video. I'm glad you did. I enjoyed making it. I was very passionate about it, but I do love milk and I get a bit passionate about things that I love. Yes, yes. Loki, are you at work? I hope you're at work. We did have that a conversation. You're not coming on, and I hope you focus on the work. Yes, yes. Good to have you here anyway, mate, as always. Thanks for dropping in, Luke. No, it's at the moment it's daytime. I don't know what time it is in Brazil at the moment. What time is it, Lukey? Tell us. Don't take milk from us big babies. Mate. I'm gonna definitely say something to your missus. Could you please cover chicken and poultry as well in your controversy series? Yes, we could. We could. Yes, I've actually done the PUFA stuff. You should check the PUFA stuff. Yeah, take a look at the PUFA stuff, the playlist, and it has a comprehensive amount of stuff in it. Yes, yes. So if you want to basically, because remember Up Syndrome, it does help my viewership, and it does help with the Al Gore. Al Gore is very happy when you Up Syndrome watch a few of my PUFA videos. On the milk, I noticed made by cow is more yellow than the other stuff. Yes, they pretty much all their stuff is grass. They're actually just grazing on grass, so there's no grains being fed to them or anything like that. So yeah, it is. It has a yellower color. It's the carotenoids and the you know, that you find in the actual grass itself that are basically, and that tells you when the milk is slightly yellower, that it is grass. It's being grass fed. A lot of the commercial milks out there, they do feed their cows grains, so the deuterium level in those milks is going to be higher than, yeah. So it's another good reason to avoid commercial milk. It's going to have slightly higher deuterium as well. So both in the sugar and the fat molecule. So it's a good reason, and it tastes much nicer. It tastes like the old, I remember as a child, I used to get that bottled, the old bottled sort of stuff, and that was really nice. And we used to enjoy that when we were young kids. So yes. Anyway, so definitely good stuff. Should have written tallow or whatever other animal fats. Yeah, same principle applies. Candida overgrowth problems. Can you help? A link. Go to my digestive things. I cover a lot of stuff in that. Digestive issues playlist. Oh, that's it. Okay, that's something. Anyway, I've watched your digestive issue playlist carefully and think I need lactobacillus constipation, but I only tolerate beef. Will I need to make high meat? Not really. You can do a kefir type thing, which is another way. So that's another option to use. And there's a lot of play. You can do sort of a water-based kefir, milk-based kefir. There's a lot of different kefir variations out there. And I've actually in my community page, I actually did plug some in there. It's sort of gone further down. Yeah, there are other ways of getting that in. And the reason why we use, I try and Necro Kitty did this when she had issues as well, and by doing a sort of a key for things, she was actually able to put a broad spectrum of lactobacillus and other things, and actually increase the content of those things that she was taking in. So it helped her quite a lot dealing with this. Also, Metaflor, which is that other one that I talk about, that also, which is sort of, it's really good to suppress certain pathogens, so that as well, and that also helps with constipation as well. So that's a useful thing as well. Anyway, hand orange covering eyes, only 40 likes. Oh yes, hit the like button. Please hit the like button. Yes, made by cow, has 2 lines of milk, blue label, which is fairly standard milk. Yeah, that's true. The black label, that's Jersey. That's the one that I get. This is the yellow milk, probably mentioned. Yeah, the Jersey one is, the other one is, while they get it from different I'm not sure about the standard, the blue one myself. I've had it twice, and I tried it, and I'm going, I was a bit reluctant to continue it for the simple reason that it is lighter. Now, I don't know whether it's the cow that's producing that, but I'm concerned about are the people, because the company made by cow does get from different farmers. The Jersey ones tend to be, or it seems from what I can see, from what I've noticed, all grass fed. I'm not so confident about the other cows that they're actually getting access to their milk. So I've got a bit of concern on that, in that regard. So I've stuck to the Jersey one, and the Jersey one's much nicer anyway. So I will leave it at that. The third type is the, what is it? It's the lactose-free one. It is a lactose-free variety. Don't know enough about it. Yeah, it is. It is far more creamier and fattier. So yeah, that's why I enjoy it. I think the other one's got a bit more sugar as well, and less fat. So yeah, yes, it does. It definitely does. I've talked about this before. Collapses the glycocalyx for hours. Yes. What restores it to a functioning form beyond nitric oxide? It's usually sort of, it depends really. If you think about most people, they're assaulting their arteries continuously, absolutely continuously. And so, while taurine has an anti-glycating effect, arginine does help with nitric oxide, but you can't fix a bad diet. I've always said, after the fact, using taurine, using, citrulline and stuff like that, after the fact, yes, you can improve things over time. But fundamentally, you can't assault the body with contraindicated things day in, day out and expect, what you get is inflammation in the arteries, and damage to the protein structures through glycation. And people that usually are consuming a lot of carbs are also consuming a lot of seed oils, and that's causing a lot of oxidative stress as well. So it's compounded multiple times. So as I said, you can't supplement a bad diet ever. Melanie Milk mostly uses Jersey as well. Okay, that's another company. Look, Jersey cows don't really do well on grains. They have to graze. You know, they can get very sick on grains. They're more sensitive. So where some of the other cows, they can feed them grains. And I think that's the difference, where they've got no option. They have to feed them grass or hay or stuff like that. From memory. That is from memory. You know. What do these companies do that leads to high deuterium in packaged dairy? It's usually, you know, when you, let me put it this way, when you process things, what you're actually doing is you're losing part of the light water content. So it's not as if, well, sometimes they do add water in as well. So once they've taken out, they've processed it, they add some water to dilute it to a certain concentration. So that's the other part to it. So pasteurized is going to have slightly higher deuterium. And the packaged stuff, you know, the really like the ultra, what do they call it? The ultra UHT, as it's called. We call it ultra heated, whatever. I can't remember the exact acronym at the moment. And that, yeah, that's going to be much higher concentration, you know. And this is the problem with a lot of processed food. You're taking out some of the lower deuterium content or out of it, and concentrating the deuterium, the heavier, you know, hydrogen. It seems, because remember, it's in the sort of structures also. When you break down certain protein structures, you will concentrate that sort of stuff. Same thing with plants and all that. And the heating, you lose some of the lower content. Same thing happens when you overheat things over and over and over again. You lose a lot of the lower deuterium water molecules inside. That's what happens with seed oils. That's why it concentrates all the way up to about 255 parts per million, depending on the processing, but definitely up to 200 plus. Anyway, do you recommend Evian? No, it's definitely not low deuterium. No. Yeah, it's definitely not low deuterium. Is that a bad idea concerning? Look, the amount that I consume is very little. So yeah, and I do use choline, and that does methylate xenoestrogens. The reality is, in the real world, you can't get away from a lot of things, you know. So I'm not going to claim that plastic bottles are great. They're not. The problem is you're between a rock and a hard place. Fluoride on the one side, and on the other side, you've got xenoestrogens. Take your pick. That's the reality of the world that we live in. We don't live in a naturalistic world. And I would rather deal with some endocrine disruptors with using choline to methylate the excess, rather than trying to mitigate, you know, because otherwise you'd have to use a filter to get rid of. So pick your poison. Basically, it's not an easy way in the modern to navigate the modern world. Oh, occasionally. I'll make some patties, beef patties, because I love, if I'm doing beef patties, I love to make them and then put fry some eggs and stick a fried egg on top of it and eat it like that, or a poached egg, and just let it drip and all that. Anyway, I'm a simple man, simple tastes. Ultra heat treated. Yeah, that's it. Thanks. Trying to remember these acronyms. Too many acronyms to try and remember. That's the pricing stuff. Well, how are you still awake? Really? No, I'm on autopilot. Do pigs grow better reaching their slaughter age faster compared to other animals? Also, are there in consideration to determining the age, a look at the number on the scale? Yeah, look, I'm not really big on the animal husbandry of pigs. They do grow them to a certain size. Now, they do have what is called, like they will slaughter young piglets. So I've actually bought a young piglet before in that regard. And they will, and the aged ones. But in a sense, an aged one is going to be outdoors for longer. It should technically, this is technical, have, higher vitamin D levels in the actual skin, in the fats. But as I said, when I've looked at various studies in the past, and the range is quite all over the place. So it really matters how the farmer is, whether these piglets are outdoors, whether they're under cover, whether they're side paneling, where they're covered, so are they getting natural light? It's just so many variables. It's really hard to know for a specific. This is why when people look at some of these numbers, they're all over the place. They give a sort of a general number or an approximate number. It's hard to work out exactly in that regard. So, but piggy is nice and enjoyable, and it tends to be a lower deuterium, especially the pork belly and the bacon and stuff like that. I recently had some pork belly, really nice. Coming back this was last week, coming back from Salamanca with my brother, and he said, "What do you think?" He actually bought some other things, and I said, "Look, I'm going to buy pork belly for us." He was going to buy it, and I said, "No, look, I'll pay for it." And I just bought a big slab of pork belly. Only cost us about 20 odd bucks. I think that's all it cost me anyway. And so we cooked it up on the barbecue. Oh, was it nice? Absolutely. So we enjoyed that quite a bit. I think ground meat or mince as well is great. I think everybody likes, beef patties and stuff like that. I'm as you guys know, I'm more of a lamb pork person, and I'm not a big fan of. I just find it too bland personally for my own taste buds when it comes to beef steaks. But I do like mince, ground meat, because I can put other things in it, like so because I can incorporate eggs and other things like that and give it a different flavor altogether. So yes, and I think it does have a different flavor. It's just different. The texture is different, and I enjoy that mince texture that you find in the beef patty far more than beef itself. So that's me. I know I'm going to get a whole lot of North Americans that are going to hate me on that, but anyway, they know how I feel. I'd rather eat pork and lamb than beef. I love lamb chops. Yummy. Okay, that's a comment. More comments. Think back to stick add. But with halloumi, I love halloumi. Yes, very much love halloumi. Yep. Yep, more about plastics. Do you think heart and liver should be used as a choline taurine supplement, or do you downside or retinol copper outweigh the benefits of consuming more? Look, you can consume choline. You can I usually consume eggs, and occasionally I have consumed heart, and you can. I just find that most people that are healthy, young and healthy, don't need to supplement at all, and like the Maasai, people like that, never had a health problem. Go right through. Well, probably never that's probably not the wrong way. That's the wrong way of saying it. No, never had a health problem. They do. Everybody does, but much milder, minor. But they just live in a natural environment, eat those foods, and live to a very ripe old age. But a lot of us are damaged. Now, the reason why, if I don't have choline every day. I only have choline when I'm not eating eggs, when I get sick and tired of eating eggs. Otherwise, I eat 6 to 8 eggs a day. And when I'm not doing that, then I have a gram of choline on the day that I'm not. So that's simple as that. So it's basically, if I'm not eating, I will have it. Because I usually get well over a gram just from the food. But if I'm not eating eggs, I'm not going to get to that gram, and I'll take a gram. That's the only thing. Just to deal with methylation issues and stuff like that I have. I do have MTHFR issues. I make sure that I get enough riboflavin. I have covered that in a video, the riboflavin side. People can Google that and find it. It's called Methylation Part 1. Taurine supplementation is more of a biohack for me. I've done a lot of damage to my mitochondria consuming very high amounts of seed oils and other things like that. And I use taurine primarily to improve my sleep, apoptosis, cell senescence, stuff like that. I use it more as a biohack. Now, some people may have different opinions of the biohacks that they use. I think it's a much superior and affordable biohack, and that's what I use. So the retinol, copper stuff and all that, look, there will be a video on covering a lot of that sort of stuff in the carnivore controversies, and I'm going to leave it for that video. There may be one tomorrow covering part of that. I'll leave that up there without saying too much and giving away too much. You won't know which one I'm actually going to be covering now, will you? But I will be tomorrow. So that's at 10:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. And benefits of, yes. So look, the body usually regulates most of this. If you've got a healthy liver and you consume excess, the liver has the capacity to store shitloads. And if it doesn't, or if it doesn't want to, I'm not going to tell the body what it to do. It can excrete it via bile. You can get rid of excess retinol via bile. It can also get rid of, kidneys, and the gallbladder can get rid of a number of different minerals. Depends on the mineral. Like, I'll give you an example, manganese. Most of it, 90%, gets excreted from bile. Copper, it's a bit, some of it gets excreted and some of it gets excreted by the kidneys. But, I think most of it gets excreted by the bile as well. So if you do not have a healthy liver, as an example, or a healthy gallbladder, it could be a problem with retinol and copper and things like that, and manganese, and a few other things. So this is where the issue lies. Most people that usually get some of these derangements are usually unhealthy. So, yeah. Anyway, guys, it's about nearly 10 o'clock. I'm going to shortly pull the plug. So I've been going here for a bit of time. How do you cook your pork? Could you share some of your recipes? I don't do recipe stuff with anyone. I do that deliberately. I don't want people eating what I'm eating. I do certain things. I've got, genetics with MTHFR, choline issues, and all sorts of other genetics, calcium-related issues. Not everybody has the same stuff, and so they don't need to do exactly the same as me. And that's why I'm reluctant to do any of that. And I actually find what I eat in a day very boring anyway. I never watch any videos of anyone's. I'll be honest about that. I don't. Even when Bart did his, I just left some comment. Didn't even watch it. I left it running in the background just to basically get the viewership for him because he's a friend. But I didn't actually bother watching it. me watching Bart eat or anyone else. I don't find that appealing. I find it quite boring. But anyway, that's me. I'm more information, deep information is really, I'll waste my time on that rather than what other people eat. But I would say, my sort of approach is with pork, I won't overcook it, but I won't undercook it either. You never can be certain. So I sort of make sure that it's, very little pinkiness is inside. So I don't overcook it either. And when it comes to steaks, I definitely don't overcook them. They're usually rare or medium rare, depending on how I feel. Lamb, it will be usually medium rare. I prefer it medium rare. I don't like it rare lamb. It's just too lamby. It's the flavor, the texture. It's all about texture, stuff like that. So yeah. At this stage of my life, I do want to enjoy what I'm eating. So anyway, yes, they are the greatest and greatest. Nothing like bah to make your day. Yeah, they vary in price and all that. It depends, Sometimes I can get it at that price. Sometimes I've got it down to $8, and sometimes the buggers, there's none of the cheaper stuff, and I have to pay, $16 or $15 a kilo. So it's annoying, but yeah, it varies depending where you go and what's available. Prices have been lately a bit all over the place. I don't know why, but farmers market's been consistent, but supermarkets are a bit all over the place at the moment. What is the best way to get thiamine if eating beef only? Well, you're not going to get it from beef only. Pork is the highest source of thiamine and niacin. But beef does have better iron and many other things, and B12 as well. Yeah, that's why I usually say to people, vary the things you eat. Lamb tends to be one of the best in terms of a really good profile, a balanced profile in terms of micronutrients. But if you need more thiamine, definitely piggy is the best, hands down. Actually, best of all. I think the next one after that is tuna. Yellowfin tuna is the next one after that. After yellowfin tuna is bluefin tuna, and it goes down the list, varying from ruminants to seafood, and then you get plants much lower. You got to eat a lot of plants to get enough thiamine. So yeah, it varies, and that's the diet that actually requires double the amount because it's using both enzymatic pathways. So go figure. It's probably the reason why a lot of populations that were eating carbohydrates, like in Asia and elsewhere, like in China and elsewhere, Polynesians, they were also consuming piggy. So a good source of thiamine and niacin to help with the redox potential. Yes. So positively charged amino acids like arginine won't impact on volcanic shape through excess positive charge. Carrying earthing, perhaps earthing helps quite a bit in that regard. But that is a long, that's for a video. Add it to my videos, and I'll get into it at some stage, because I'm about to pull the plug. It is 10 o'clock. Yep. Yeah, good luck with it. And I think I'm just going to blast right through everyone here and just put you up. Please hit the like button on your way out. I do appreciate it. Last question. Oh, God, another question. Raw goat milk, freezable, or will it wreck the nutrients? It's the fatty acids. They don't really do well with freezing. And this is a thing that a number of people have asked me in the past. I've actually tried it myself, freezing milk and then defrosting it and using it, and it just changes the fatty acid sort of composition. Now, it probably is not a problem. It's just the taste is not going to be palatable. Because remember, once you get into the stomach, everything gets denatured. You can't take in foreign fats, proteins, or any structures. You have to break everything down to basic glucose, basic amino acids, basic fatty acids. That's how the body absorbs, and then has enzymes to rebuild them in different tissue types in different ways. So that's not the problem that I'm talking about. It's not going to be an issue in terms of, but it just seems that it changes the taste. I don't know whether it's the fats are absorbing some moisture in them and changing the way the flavor is. Try it. See whether you like the flavor. I know you're trying to store stuff at the moment with things, if you can access stuff and then store it as a storage method. In the difficult times of food insecurity in Europe, you're in the UK as well there. I would store it and try it. And if you like it, fine. If you don't like it, so it's a palatability issue. Really, fundamentally, it's a palatability issue. At the end of the day, everything has to be denatured, to be broken down into its constituent parts so we can absorb it and then utilize it. So that's not the issue at all. Our major issues are things like oxidation, aldehydes, and other things that are problematic, deuterium and things like that. This sort of paleo nonsense about denaturing is just ridiculous. Well, how am I going to absorb a foreign protein if it's not denatured? It's probably going to react with my tissue and my immune system if it's not an amino acid. Yeah, so, I would say, is there, I have to think about that one. I may send you a comment. I may message you a comment, okay? Yeah, I have to think about that. Is there a way of storing milk that may minimize the palatability issue? Let me look into it. There may be a temperature variation. I know some people have like an external freezer type, which the like the bar fridges or stuff like that, something similar to that, but they can set it to a different temperature. So they can keep things for quite some time, but it doesn't actually it doesn't freeze it in an extreme, put crystals, build crystals. And I think that there is a difference there, but I'm trying to remember now. Yeah, I'll look into it. Damn it, Jonathan. Oh, Sophie just asked. Oh, blame Sophie. Man up, mate. Man up. Blame Sophie. Take responsibility. You're a man, aren't you? Big balls and all. Yeah. Have a beautiful night. Thanks, mate. Oh, yes. See you, mate. And night to you as well. Good night, and make kefir from it to store it. Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. You can actually make milk kefir. It stores for a certain amount of time, but it doesn't store for a massive amount of time. Yeah, I think he's trying to store it for a bit longer, but in the safest way is what we're talking about here. So anyway, guys, thanks for being here. I appreciate everybody being here and your support. Please hit the like button on your way out if you haven't. Please sort of spread it around, and also use my hashtag and post it around with some sort of comment in support of this channel. I would really appreciate that as well. Thanks, Scotty. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your contributions and everybody else's contributions as well, and questions. Without questions and contributions, this live stream would be very boring and very uninteresting. So you guys make the difference. I just provide the answers, but fundamentally, without the questions, there can be no answers. So thank you for your support for my channel and your contributions. See ya, Up Syndrome. Take care, mate. Yep, you too, Lukey. Take care, and yeah, good luck with the new job, and I hope things go well with you. Take care, mate. Look after yourself. Anyway, I'm out of here. And regards to your mum as well. See ya. Anyway, I'm out of here. Take care. Oops. Hit the right button.